Our male protagonist, Han Tayun, had just arrived at his grandfather's office. As he stepped inside, he noticed an envelope and casually questioned why he'd been summoned to deal with such trivial matters. His grandfather, a sly smile playing on his lips, reminded Tayun of his promise to handle these tasks, demanding their completion within a day. Tayun raised an eyebrow, asking if these were merely tedious receipts, and proceeded to ramble about his involvement in various charitable associations. He couldn't fathom why a busy man like himself should be bothered with receipts, dramatically tearing one to shreds. Curiosity, however, propelled Tayun to open another envelope. Inside were requests for charitable donations, which his grandfather encouraged him to fulfill. Tayun, his face etched with surprise, inquired if this meant he had free rein. His grandfather, with a knowing smile, confirmed that this was indeed the case, granting him the authority to decide where the funds would go. His grandfather, in a rare moment of candor, confessed that he hadn't had a moment's peace since handing the company over to his son. He hinted that if Tayun handled this matter effectively, more exciting responsibilities might follow. Eager to please his grandfather, Tayun pledged to do anything he desired. The next scene finds Tayun seated with his parents, discussing the prevailing trend of gaining experience before taking over a company. His mother suggested that trying his hand at managing the historical prison hospital would be an ideal opportunity. His father had been keeping an eye on it, especially since the hospital's chairman had mentioned stepping down. Tayun, however, seemed distracted throughout the conversation. They had to draw him back into the discussion and encourage his participation. The scene then shifts to the renowned Seomoon prison hospital. We see a doctor, Dr. Yang, being questioned about a patient's vital signs. She confidently reports a normal heart rate, and all other indicators looking good. The one inquiring is Dr. Yoon Haejun, our female protagonist. She suggests that Dr. Yang might take over the rest of the surgery, implying her own imminent departure. Some colleagues invite her to dinner, but she politely declines, citing other arrangements. Her colleagues are undoubtedly captivated by her. Dr. Yang herself can't help but admire Ha-Jin's charisma and composed demeanor. She wonders how a first-year specialist can be so flawless. It's said that Ha-Jin was incredibly popular at Hankook University Hospital, practically the queen bee, yet even with a demanding workload, she never complained about challenging surgeries. Dr. Yang sometimes finds her a bit aloof, but still has to acknowledge her perfection, making her a rising star in cardiothoracic surgery. Ha-Jin abruptly enters Dr. Park's office. Calling his name, she asks if he's preparing to leave, and he advises her to be careful. She admits she came because of him and expresses uncertainty about what she'll do after his departure. He encourages her to continue her hard work. They discuss his work and the illnesses he treats, while she offers encouragement. She suggests he take a good rest for the next 3 months and promises to manage the hospital affairs, assuring him that the century-old prison hospital will be fine. Dr. Park is filled with regret these days. He reflects that perhaps he should have let Ha-Jin stay at Hankook University Hospital. He blames himself entirely, feeling somewhat selfish. But Ha-Jin doesn't see it that way. She actually enjoys her time at the prison hospital. Dr. Park eagerly wants to stay at the prison hospital and establish a heart transplant center. He even plans to bring in other Hankook University alumni. Then he reveals to Ha-Jin the news about the new chairman. The eldest son of the Sewing Group is about to take over. The man is said to be incredibly tough. Haejun, the voice of reason, attempted to soothe his agitation. She told him to focus on getting back to his best so they could cut the ribbon for the heart transplant center together. She also promised to hold down the fort at the hospital. Meanwhile, Ethan was having a heart-to-heart with his parents. He questioned whether they were sidelining him to the hospital because his reputation had taken a hit after the failed merger. He argued his case forcefully, claiming he'd doubled the company's sales. He didn't believe he should be forced out simply for the sake of appearances. His mother tried to persuade him to make peace with the situation, but Ethan only reluctantly agreed to their plan, convinced he would prove himself. He intended to boost the hospital's sales within a year. He completely rejected his mother's matchmaking plans, however, insisting she drop the idea if he succeeded. He left the room in a huff. Elsewhere in the hospital, Dr. Haejun had just finished briefing her colleagues on a patient status. She remained standing, as if there was more to say. She dropped a bombshell. The head of their center would be leaving for 3 months. Then she spoke of her own ambitious dream to establish a heart transplant center. The problem was, with the chairman ill, the project wasn't in next year's budget. She stressed the need for a plan, especially with the supplementary budget proposal fast approaching. But her colleagues seemed unconvinced. They deemed it unnecessary, expecting a new chairman soon. They believed only Dr. Park could push the project forward. The meeting quickly adjourned. One doctor even warned her against getting her hopes up about the heart transplant center. Haejun didn't react much, simply lowering her head after the meeting. Some sympathetic colleagues approached her, expressing concern and offering support. She thanked them, asking for their patience during Dr. Park's 3-month absence. One colleague remained skeptical, mentioning unsettling rumors about the new chairman. The mysterious chairman's name kept surfacing, causing unease. Haejun assumed he was just another wealthy heir, but her colleagues revealed inside information, gleaned from someone on the strategic planning team at Moon Motors, that he was apparently no ordinary rich kid. Trying to reassure everyone, Haejun reminded them that the new chairman was still human. Her colleagues looked to her as a beacon of hope, placing their trust in her. But inwardly, she doubted her ability to lead during such uncertain times. But then, she recalled Dr. Park's encouragement not to give up. With renewed determination, she reminded them of the hospital's promise. When Dr. Park was recruited, they promised a dedicated transplant center for cardiothoracic surgery. She added that with so many hard-working colleagues, they were sure to achieve their goal, though she'd never imagined she'd be relied upon so heavily. Curious about the chairman, she asked for more details. A colleague suggested they might be exaggerating. The chairman wasn't a monster. Haejun asked for clarification on the term beast, and her colleague explained that the chairman was both intimidating and charismatic. She found this amusing, joking that they'd soon find out if the new chairman was truly human. Just then, an emergency call spurred her into action. A patient needed her, so she rushed off, unaware she was about to meet the new chairman. Meanwhile, the new chairman, Seo Yihan, observed her sprinting figure, commenting on her speed and wondering if she was a patient. Noticing the colleagues following Dr. Yoon, his subordinate offered to find out about their department. However, Han believed a hospital should always be busy. The busier it was, the more money it made. Arriving at the emergency medical center, Dr. Yoon was informed of a construction site accident. 2 patients had already been pronounced dead on arrival. Neurosurgery and general surgery had been notified, but she was the first on the scene. Dr. Yoon Haejun moved with practiced efficiency, already assessing the situation, asking about the severity of the accident and the patient's levels of consciousness. Another doctor rattled off vitals and possible injuries. Dr. Yang suggested a bronchoscopy to assess the airway and immediate transfer to the OR. Haejun, taking in the scene, noted the patient's head seemed miraculously intact. The lungs, however, were a different story. "Get an anesthesiologist down here," she directed. "I'll page my team." Suddenly, the doctor interrupted her, insistent that they couldn't proceed without the patient's next of kin or a signed consent form. Haejun didn't miss a beat. If 2 or more medical professionals concur, she stated firmly, "We can operate." She gestured between herself and the other doctor. "And I believe," she added with a confident smile, "we have an agreement." In another scene, Tayun sat in his grandfather's office, a curious little boy at his side. The boy, Ethan, piped up, questioning why his grandfather was leaving, even though Tayun was there. Ethan clearly found his grandfather's actions perplexing. Tayun, trying to soothe the child, ruffled his hair gently. He couldn't help but think how endearingly innocent the boy was. Ethan then asked if he could play with some papers. He reminded himself of the rules of playing with paper. Finally, Tayun agreed, allowing the child free rein over the documents. Meanwhile, back in the emergency room, Haejun was in the midst of a tense discussion, trying to persuade her colleague, Dr. Juno, to agree with their proposed course of action for the patient. Juno, however, was steadfast in his refusal. He pointed out the last time Haejun had pulled a similar stunt, Dr. Park had to step in to smooth things over. Furthermore, Juno stated he needed consultations from both general surgery and thoracic surgery. Surprisingly, Haejun didn't back down. She continued to press her case, but Juno kept emphasizing the exorbitant cost, which would run into tens of millions of won. Their discussion went back and forth, a tug-of-war over whether or not to help this patient. Finally, Haejun played her trump card. She revealed she knew someone who could help with the surgery costs. She told Juno about a new foundation funded by a large corporation, specifically designed to assist foreign workers with medical expenses. Dr. Chong was one of their advisors. Juno's eyes widened. Dr. Chong from Hankook University Hospital. He asked incredulously. Haejun confirmed, explaining that cases like this were highly likely to receive funding, and Dr. Chong had already promised to assist her if needed. With that settled, they decided to proceed with the surgery. Later, after the successful operation, Haejun called Dr. Chong, sharing the good news and confirming the details. She then turned to her colleague, informing him that the doctors at Hankook University Hospital had agreed to handle the case. She also mentioned that someone from the foundation would come by to get the necessary signatures once the patient regained consciousness. Juno, however, expressed his concerns not just about the success of others operating, but also about Haejun taking on too much. In response, she confidently declared that her surgeries were always successful, echoing Juno's earlier sentiment. He still maintained that she should have stayed at Hankook University Hospital. It would have been easier for her. She could have been the second Dr. Kong Ju-jin. As their conversation continued, Juno rummaged in his white coat pocket, finally producing a lollipop, which he offered to Haejun. Haejun questioned what was so bad about the prison hospital. Juno quipped, "The famous Haejun hiding here, eating lollipops." He then playfully asked what he would get in return for his help. She reminded him of a past incident, the orientation party, where he had confessed his feelings for her and been rejected, subsequently crying under a streetlight. She declared that, as payment for his assistance, that memory would remain forever secret. The young man, the one who had come looking for Haejun, Dr. Haejun, was being briefed about the chief resident looking for her as the new chairman was arriving today. The chairman, it seemed, was making rounds before his official inauguration ceremony, and Dr. Choi, having been the first to encounter him, was buzzing with excitement. Haejun recalled her colleague's strange whisperings about the new chairman being some sort of human-beast hybrid. She cautioned Kongmin to be wary and not get too close. She even joked that the new chairman's arrival was like a scene out of a movie or Greek mythology. She attributed this to their shared fascination with chaebols, thanks to the pervasive influence of capitalism. When Kongmin inquired if she wanted to discuss the current state of the hospital, Director Seo politely declined, not wanting to interrupt anyone busy. They continued their formal meet and greet with the doctors, a queue forming. When it was Hayden's turn, she immediately recognized the man, having encountered him earlier with Director Han. As part of the prison hospital staff, she felt obligated to know the chairman's face. Haejun began to speak of the chairman's reputation, but he cut her off, curious about the gossip circulating about him. Caught off guard, he quickly realized his playful jab had made her slightly nervous. He apologized, and like a true professional, she assured him she would live up to his expectations. He keenly observed her body language, suspecting something was on her mind. Just as she was about to bring up the heart transplant center, her colleague burst in with breaking news. Their previous patient had woken up. Haejun feigned composure, saying she'd check on him later. Little did she know things were about to take a turn for the worse, because the patient hadn't just woken up. He'd escaped the hospital. Dr. Yoon rushed to the ward, demanding to know if they'd checked the security footage. They had, and security had been alerted, but unfortunately, the patient was already gone, having stolen clothes from the hospital laundry and likely escaped in a taxi. Haejun felt a wave of nausea, briefly considering feigning a faint, but her colleague snapped her back to reality, urging her to stay calm. They were waiting for a call from the police, as security had managed to get the taxi's license plate number. They speculated that the patient fled due to mounting medical bills. But Dr. Yoon countered that this could have been avoided if the patient knew the bills were already covered. While waiting for the police to call back, she confided in her colleague, Min Guk, that the patient was unlikely to return on his own. In another scene, news of the incident reached the new chairman Seo. He surmised that given the substantial expenses, it must have been a major surgery. Director Han provided Chairman Seo with the details, explaining that the CS and GS departments had collectively spent 10 hours on the surgery, in addition to various tests conducted on the patient. After detailed questioning, Chairman Seo deduced that the key figure in this incident was Dr. Yoon, and he began to ponder her true nature and motivations. Chairman Seo continued his inquiry, asking about the potential financial repercussions for the hospital. Director Han explained that, while they weren't a prestigious university hospital, they had successfully met all the necessary standards. He also mentioned that, aside from Chief Park and the CS department, they hadn't handled many major surgeries. A first-year resident performing such a procedure was indeed unusual. The chairman regarded this with a thoughtful frown. When asked about Dr. Yoon Haejun's close relationship with Dr. Park, Director Seo explained that while Dr. Park's contributions had elevated the hospital's reputation, allowing the previous chairman to overlook some of his actions, he cautioned against letting Dr. Park assemble his own surgical team. Disciplinary action, the director advised, was necessary. Pressed for specifics, he explained that Haejun would need to write a formal apology and preventative measures would be put in place to avoid a recurrence. Interestingly, the director privately mused. The heir to the Simon Group, a man who valued tangible results, was unlikely to support an unprofitable heart transplant center. The director also noted that Haejun's case involved a dedicated female doctor, a detail that had piqued the chairman's interest. Mr. Han decided to attend the opening ceremony at 2 p.m., stating his intention to personally verify the information provided by the director. Meanwhile, Dr. Juno inquired about Hagen's state of mind after recent events, referencing his earlier prediction that she might encounter difficulties. Hagen requested his guidance, jokingly asking where she could find 78 million and won, and expressing her bewilderment that these events coincided with the new chairman's arrival. Juno asked if she had spoken with Dr. Park, which she confirmed, elaborating on the challenges posed by the patient's unexpected departure. Hagen's evident concern for the patient's well-being caught her colleague's attention, who observed that she seemed more preoccupied with the patient's welfare than her own uncertain career prospects. Juno attempted to reassure her, guaranteeing she wouldn't bear the financial burden, and speculating that since the chairman hadn't mentioned severe sanctions, a written apology might suffice. Coincidentally, Ethan and Director Seo overheard Haejun's conversation with Juno on their way to the opening ceremony. At the ceremony, Ethan formally introduced himself as the newly appointed director of Simon Group Hospital. He also thanked all attendees for their presence and pledged to oversee and enhance the efficiency of all hospital operations. He implicitly conveyed the importance of diligence in their respective roles to Haejun and the entire staff. Juno advised Haejun to avoid direct eye contact with Chairman Han and maintain a low profile. However, she remained resolute, especially considering the trust and pride her colleagues placed in her accomplishments. Juno found her assertive demeanor amusing, privately regretting not pursuing her during their residency training. Following Chairman Seo Yihan's speech, the room erupted in applause. Amidst the cheers, he noticed Haejun clapping with particular fervor, but the way she clapped piqued his curiosity, and he made a mental note of her actions. Director Seo approached, commending the chairman, confirming that the speech had exceeded his expectations and likely inspired everyone present. The director then transitioned to business matters, mentioning the upcoming dinner meeting with the CEO of Daehan Pharmaceuticals. He added that he had prepared a detailed report on drug pricing, sales, and related companies. As the director delved into these matters, Chairman Han abruptly interrupted, requesting to see Hagen's resume. Meanwhile, in Dr. Choi Do-kwon's office, Haejun was enduring a severe reprimand. After bearing the brunt of the criticism, Haejun decided to leave. Her colleagues waited for her outside, expressing sympathy for the scolding she had received. However, Haejun seemed unfazed, reassuring them not to worry. She mentioned that she just needed to find a way to catch Dr. Choi's attention, considering this wasn't the first time he had lashed out at her. Her colleagues inquired about her plan. After speaking with Chairman Seo, Haejun confirmed her intentions with her colleagues, who offered to accompany her later. She inquired whether the police or immigration authorities had contacted the hospital yet. Haejun was surprised to learn they hadn't received any response. A colleague mentioned checking the communities where foreign workers often gathered and trying to obtain CCTV footage. They explained they'd been diligently trying to locate the missing patient. Haejun apologized for dragging them into her predicament, but they assured her of their willingness to to help. One colleague shared the information they had gathered on the new chairman, describing him as ruthless and willing to do whatever it takes to achieve his goals. Their research suggested his trust issues stemmed from a traumatic kidnapping experience in his childhood, and that he was an illegitimate child, adopted into the family to protect their reputation. He was known to have outbursts of anger, often fueled by resentment towards his biological mother. Just as they were about to reveal more of their findings, Haejun interrupted, emphasizing that they shouldn't judge the chairman based on rumors. They quickly apologized for their behavior, and she then left to meet with Chairman Seo. Upon arriving at the chairman's office, Haejun bowed deeply in apology. Chairman Seo appeared puzzled, asking why she was apologizing. She explained it was regarding the incident with the foreign patient and for causing him such a shock on his first day. Chairman Seo mentioned the hospital's loss of 78 million won and inquired if there were any other undisclosed expenses. He reassured Haejun that he understood the situation, acknowledging it was beyond her control, and advised her to ensure such an incident wouldn't happen again. He also admitted he had misjudged her character, assuming she was like the others. Haejun expressed her gratitude and relief that the chairman understood the situation with the patient. Chairman Seo indicated the meeting could conclude, but Haejun brought up another topic, promising to be brief, considering the chairman's busy schedule. She couldn't help but feel regretful about raising this matter so soon after Chairman Seo's arrival. However, the chairman, intrigued by her intentions, encouraged her to continue. He had already dealt with the financial matters and decided to hear her out. Haejun seemed hesitant to reveal the true purpose of her visit. Just as Chairman Seo was about to end the meeting due to her prolonged silence, Haejun finally spoke. She mentioned it concerned the establishment of a heart transplant center. The news was so startling that Director Han dropped his pen. Haejun went on to explain that the previous chairman had promised Dr. Park a heart transplant center as an incentive to join Jaeil Hospital. She pointed out that while they had a general organ transplant center, they didn't offer heart transplants. Dr. Park had been working at the hospital for 3 years, and Haejun felt it was time to address the issue. However, Director Han questioned the timing, especially considering Haejun's recent contribution to the hospital's significant financial loss. Haejun acknowledged the unfortunate timing, but insisted that the heart transplant center was a separate and crucial matter. She explained that Dr. Park was on sick leave and couldn't come in person, and that this matter was vital for the development of the cardiothoracic surgery department. Director Han curiously asked why a first-year resident was representing such an important matter. He expressed skepticism about the project's feasibility, noting the potential high costs, and suggested that without a written contract, the matter shouldn't be discussed further. Haejun slammed her hand on the chairman's desk in frustration. To emphasize his seriousness, Chairman Han reminded Haejun that just as she was dedicated to her work as a cardiothoracic surgeon, he was equally committed to leading the hospital forward. He stressed the importance of efficiency, stating that sometimes a firm stance was necessary. Juno, feeling disappointed, questioned why he was being so lenient if he was truly as resolute as he claimed. Chairman Han clarified that he hadn't forgiven her. Haejun blamed herself for assuming the chairman would overlook her recent mistakes. He advised her to let the matter go and not to worry about it. As she left his office, she paused, asking if he truly meant what he said. Given her profession's focus on the human heart, she wished him good health and departed. After Haejun left, a man named Johan appeared at the doorway, commenting on her appearance and inquiring about her identity, but Chairman Han silenced him. Yuan persisted, prompting the chairman to offer him money to keep quiet. The chairman then instructed Johan to leave and not to come to his office unless it was something important. As he was leaving, Johan noticed Haejun's resume on the desk, with the word shameless scrawled prominently across it. In another scene, Haejun was engrossed in her phone, furiously searching for information on Chairman Seo Yihan. Her colleague, Juno, entered the room with a curious expression, asking why she was so intently investigating. Haejun looked at her search results with disappointment, noting the near absence of any history on the chairman. She expressed disbelief, believing that someone seemingly so ruthless must have some hidden story and couldn't have just appeared out of thin air. In an attempt to cheer her up, Juno offered her a lollipop, apparently surprised by her sudden craving for sweets. Haejun sighed, admitting she felt she could no longer approach the chairman about the heart transplant center. Juno, perplexed, inquired about her change in attitude and whether the chairman had said anything harsh to her. The question irritated Haejun, who questioned whether Juno held a negative opinion of her. Juno quickly offered her another piece of candy and offered some words of encouragement. He reminded her of the time she used to perform surgery solo before their colleague, presumably nicknamed Oreo, joined the team. Haejun quipped that if she operated on Chairman Seo Yihan, she might find a vibranium battery inside him. However, Juno remained confused as to his knowledge. The chairman hadn't raised his voice or shown any anger. He struggled to understand why Haejun was so disheartened. She retorted that the chairman yelling would have been a better reaction, leaving Juno even more bewildered. Finally, he asked her what was wrong and if she was planning to give up on the transplant center. Haejun clenched her fist, lollipop still in hand, and firmly declared she would never give up, demonstrating her unwavering resolve. Meanwhile, Yihan apologized for summoning a particular employee, despite him no longer being his secretary. However, the young man insisted it was an honor to be called by the chairman. The young man was revealed to be Kong Cutie, a former employee of Seomoon Motors, now working for the Seomoon Group. He assured the chairman of his availability at any time. Chairman Han then inquired about Dr. Park, and Kong Cutie explained that while there was a verbal agreement, there was no official documentation. He mentioned Dr. Park In-young was a prominent figure, and it seemed the hospital was willing to accommodate his request for a transfer to the prison hospital. Kong Cutie further noted that if this were a typical company, they would carefully assess the pros and cons and draw up a formal contract. But it seemed the hospital operated differently. Chairman Han questioned the lack of rules and regulations, to which Kong Cutie replied that for what he understood, people in the hospital often let things slide due to personal feelings. The chairman expressed his resolve to change this. As they arrived at the hospital, Kong Cutie continued to ponder why Chairman Han remained in such a place, why he hadn't been promoted to headquarters along with him. He bluntly suggested that the chairman should speak with his father again, as he shouldn't be stuck in a hospital like this. He questioned why the chairman's father would place him in a seemingly unrelated hospital. Chairman Han interrupted him, revealing that this hospital wasn't entirely unrelated. They continued their discussion regarding the chairman's presence at the hospital and potential ways to resolve the situation when they suddenly encountered Haejun. Johan found himself caught in the conversation. Haejun questioning her presence, believing they had already discussed all pertinent points. But Haejun insisted on continuing the dialogue, firmly stating they had only just begun. She suggested moving the conversation outside, but Johan instead gestured for her to come inside. In the following scene, Johan's mother was tending to her beloved flowers when her other son, Yuan, startled her, causing one of the delicate blooms to be unfortunately damaged. She confided in her son, expressing how much comfort the plants had brought her recently. Yuan questioned her sentiment with some surprise, reminding her that she had two perfectly capable sons. To this, she jokingly asked if he considered himself capable, expressing her exasperation, saying one son was obsessed with wealth while the other squandered it freely. She even went so far as to say she sometimes wished she had a daughter. She asserted that despite her younger son's seemingly carefree demeanor, he still managed to worry her every day. Johan attempted to one-up Johan, mentioning he would give his mother massages, while his brother wouldn't. She quipped that even if he did offer, she would refuse, as he frightened her. She did, however, admit that having Johan around gave her a sense of peace, to which he playfully retorted about being the most filial son. Suddenly, Johan jokingly asked his mother for money, but she brushed his hand off her shoulder, telling him to go to school. He teased that he was the youngest and cutest member of the family and shouldn't be treated so harshly. Just then, however, her phone rang, and she waved him away, answering the call. Johan, unfazed, continued talking about his visit to Jaeil Hospital to see his brother. It wasn't until he mentioned his brother being on a date with someone that his mother abruptly ended the call. She ordered him to come back and sit down while he chuckled about being late. Despite this, his mother tried to persuade him to stay and tell her about seeing his brother with a woman at the hospital. She wanted to make sure it wasn't just a business associate of Johan's. Johan explained that he doubted it was business-related, as his brother had even given the woman a nickname. He eased his mother back in her seat, further explaining that his brother and the woman were having a serious discussion. His mother, shocked by this revelation, repeatedly sought confirmation, and Johan assured her it was true. She then pressed him for details about what he observed between Johan and the woman, and what the nickname was. The revelation startled her, and Johan offered to get her some water, asking if she wanted him to fetch her wallet as well. Meanwhile, Chairman Seo Yihan Haejun continued her discussion with Chairman Han. Han remained firm in his belief that the Heart Transplant Center project was untenable. Haejun, keeping her composure, asked if his concerns were solely about the transplant center or if they extended to her personally. Han admitted it was both. He explained that such a significant undertaking required considerable time and resources, and he was hesitant to invest if he couldn't trust the person leading it. While acknowledging Haejun's undeniable talent and promising future, he struggled to understand her insistence on this particular endeavor. He emphasized his desire to provide his staff with the most efficient working environment in Korea, but Haejun cut him short. She abruptly declared her intention to repay the 78 million won. Han was taken aback, while she reiterated her resolve to return the money. Haejun continued her conversation with Chairman Han, determined to address the situation head-on. She stated that if he had any issues with her, they should start by resolving the outstanding debt. She then posed a hypothetical question, asking if he would reconsider the Heart Transplant Center project if she repaid the money. Han, however, found her words almost amusing, as if she were joking. Haejun earnestly tried to convince him that she was entirely serious, willing to return the money she had worked so hard to save. Han, curious, asked why she would spend her hard-earned money in such a way. She explained that the transplant center meant a great deal to her. She implored him to consider it carefully, even if he didn't immediately commit to its establishment, and asked him to reconsider. As their conversation continued, Han's phone rang, but he chose not to answer, gesturing to Haejun that she needn't leave. She insisted on excusing herself, realizing the call might be important, and promised to continue their discussion later. After she left the office, Han answered the call. It was his mother. She playfully remarked that he sounded particularly cheerful. He explained that nothing special was happening, but she remained suspicious. She even suggested he might be seeing the woman she wanted to set him up with on a blind date. Han, perplexed, asked if there was another reason for her call besides setting him up, but she denied it, saying she just wanted to check on him. She jokingly reassured him that she wouldn't arrange a blind date, as she knew he was already seeing someone. She confidently declared that secrets couldn't be kept forever, adding playfully that the person he was seeing wasn't just anyone, but a doctor. Han realized the misunderstanding was likely caused by his brother, Johan. Meanwhile, Haejun sat outside, where a kind woman offered her a drink. She politely declined, thanking her and inquiring about the chairman's schedule. They chatted about the woman's grandmother, who was recovering well after Dr. Yoon's surgery. The woman promised to inform Haejun as soon as the chairman's call ended, so she could return to his office. Then Haejun recalled a dinner conversation with her colleague, Juno. Juno had been surprised by her intention to repay the money, knowing her financial struggles. Juno reminded her that she had given all her savings to her mother to open a shop and was now strapped for cash, unable to even afford their current meal, let alone surgery costs. He advised her to reconsider, pointing out that 78 million won wasn't a significant sum for the wealthy chairman. He questioned what she would do next, considering she couldn't afford the surgery. Haejun considered taking out a loan. Faced with the harsh reality of her situation, Haejun realized she didn't even know where to begin picking up the pieces. She knew she had to work harder, so that the two colleagues who depended on her wouldn't regret placing their trust in CS. Back in the present, the secretary informed Haejun that Chairman Han had finished his call. As she re-entered his office, she noticed a shift in his expression, piquing her curiosity. Meanwhile, Johan was on the phone with his mother. She gently reminded him that her birthday was next week and suggested it would be wonderful if he could bring the doctor to the celebration. She emphasized that she wasn't asking for much, just a glimpse of the woman he was rumored to be seeing. She assured him she wouldn't pressure him, didn't need a formal introduction, just a quick look from afar. She even offered the excuse of a company gathering to explain her absence insurance and promised not to bother the doctor too much. To seal the deal, she vowed never to make such a request again if he granted her this small wish. Yuan, intrigued, asked what the consequences would be if she went back on her word. His mother proudly mentioned her position as the director of the Seomoon Art Gallery. Johan jokingly retorted that he should inherit the gallery if she broke her promise. But she immediately dismissed the idea, saying the doctor might have his own plans that day. She attempted to end the conversation, mentioning she needed to prepare food, and then hung up. Chairman Han, relieved to have avoided another tedious blind date, began to entertain the thought of pretending to be in a relationship with Dr. Yoon. Just then, Haejun entered the room, noticing the call had ended. She approached him, and he gestured for her to sit down. Johan then made her an unexpected proposition. In exchange for paying off her debt, she should pretend to be his girlfriend. Johan offered a tempting sum of 10 million won for each meeting with his mother. Haejun, stunned by the proposal, questioned its implications. The chairman explained that the money was specifically for meeting his mother, and if she cooperated, he would provide reasonable compensation for other aspects of their pretend relationship. Haejun firmly refused the offer, stating that her profession was to heal hearts, and she refused to participate in such a charade. She intended to act as if the conversation never happened. As she left the office, Johan scoffed and implied that her resolve to secure the transplant center might not be as strong as he thought. He reminded her that she had once said that even his reconsideration was a victory for her, and he believed his offer was reasonable. Haejun stood her ground, confronting Han, suggesting he enjoyed manipulating others for his own amusement. But the heart transplant center was not a matter to be trifled with. She left 2 million won on his desk and declared that she now owed him 76 million won, promising to repay the remaining amount as soon as possible. Haejun left the chairman's office, the encounter replaying in her mind. The entire experience left her deeply unsettled. Despite her financial struggles, she wasn't desperate enough to tolerate such behavior. The chairman's actions were pushing her towards a significant decision, perhaps opening her own clinic, albeit a small one, with the support of her colleagues. As she left, her colleagues called out to her. Juno, surprised by her shaken demeanor, despite supposedly having been present, questioned her about her presence there. She revealed her plans to leave Hankook University Hospital next year, hoping Haejun hadn't forgotten her promise. Haejun hurriedly urged her to wait. Meanwhile, Chairman Seo Yihan was meeting with Mr. Kong in his office. Mr. Kong, noticing the chairman's serious mood, kindly offered to arrange a birthday gift for him, just like the one he'd arranged for the chairman's mother last year. However, Chairman Seo cut him short, mentioning that what his mother truly desired was to see him with a woman by his side. Mr. Kong commented that the chairman's mother was always concerned about him, and Chairman Seo, considering the potential benefits of such an arrangement, mused that it might involve his mother's art gallery. As the younger man left the chairman's office, he reminded him to prepare a gift for his mother's birthday. Suddenly, Haejun entered the office. Chairman Seo greeted her warmly, expressing surprise that she was willing to see him again. She immediately inquired about the details of their upcoming date. Chairman Seo instructed Mr. Kong to prepare clothes for a man and a woman at the boutique in Cheongdam-dong. Haejun was taken aback by the charade. She pondered why a wealthy man like Chairman Seo would need to bring a pretend partner to his mother's birthday party. Still, she should be more concerned about herself than the chairman. She considered how to better understand Chairman Seo and play the role of his girlfriend flawlessly. She recalled that the last time she had a crush on someone was back in elementary school, making this task all the more challenging. Meanwhile, at the hospital, surgery was underway. Haejun was leading the operation, taking the time to teach the other doctors in the room about the procedure. Unexpectedly, she left the operating room, leaving the other doctors to continue. As she emerged, she encountered her colleague, Kong Min, who inquired if she had just finished surgery. She countered, asking him why he was outside, considering he had mentioned going to another operating room earlier. Kong Min explained that they hadn't received clearance from anesthesiology. They had scheduled the surgery, but Dr. Go said they couldn't proceed because the patient's underlying health conditions hadn't been properly checked, so they needed to redo the coronary angiography. Kong Min sought Haejun's advice, and she reassured him that it was fine as long as the tests were done now. Kong Min mentioned that Dr. Choi was in charge, But Dr. Choi had gotten angry and decided to go home, believing that redoing the test would take too long, and he didn't want to postpone until next week. This angered Dr. Seo, who told Dr. Choi to do as he pleased. Haejun was incredulous at their behavior. The patient had come specifically for the surgery. Kong Min continued, saying that both doctors had promised to follow the correct procedures, and Haejun agreed with their approach. She instructed Kong Min to perform an allergy test on the patient and obtain signed consent. Kong Min apologized for interrupting her just after surgery. Meanwhile, the time for Chairman Seo Yihan's date with Haejun had arrived. It was also the chairman's mother's birthday. The hospital director told Chairman Seo that he would accompany him today, as it was his mother's birthday. Chairman Seo was surprised that the director knew. The director explained that he knew the birthdays of both of the chairman's parents, and since the chairman was here, it was only natural to pay his respects in person. Although Chairman Seo felt it wasn't necessary, the director insisted, mentioning that he was the planning director, and he proposed showing the chairman the indoor garden in the lobby, but Chairman Seo promptly refused. Chairman Seo Yihan then requested the financial statements for the past 3 years, a comparison of doctors with the top 3 hospitals, VIP ward information, and personnel statistics for the following morning. Afterward, he left. The chairman found Haejun crouched behind the door and questioned why she had chosen that route. Instead of coming directly from the CS department, Haejun smoothed her hair, explaining that she didn't want to arouse Director Han's suspicion, as he'd been hovering nearby. Chairman Seo Yihan suggested she could have called him, but then remembered she didn't have his number. Haejun mentioned that she couldn't accompany him to the boutique that evening because she needed to finish examining a patient. She assured him, however, that she would be at his mother's birthday party. Yihan chuckled inwardly, remarking that that explained her hiding amongst the shrubbery. He asked her to be there by 7:30, to which she readily agreed. Yihan inquired if she had any other requests, but she hesitated, saying she couldn't ask for more. Then she decided to ask the question she had originally intended for the boutique. What is mother like? Yihan reassured Haejun that she needn't worry, but she insisted on getting it right, feeling it would be pointless otherwise. She reminded him that this was to repay her debt, and she never did anything half-heartedly, always giving her all. She admitted it might be difficult to perfectly match his mother's preferences, but she was determined to try her best. She asked about his mother's personality and style, as this would guide her choice of attire. She wondered whether his mother preferred a more understated, subtle style, or if, given it was a birthday, something more glamorous would be appropriate. Surprisingly, Yihan replied that her mere presence was what mattered most to his family. If he had to choose, however, he would suggest something more subdued rather than overly flashy. But Haejun wasn't finished. She was also interested in his preferences, reasoning that even in a pretend relationship, understanding each other was important. This caught him off guard. He hadn't expected her to take it so seriously. She urged him to share something about himself, like his likes, dislikes, or anything she should be mindful of or avoid. He hesitated, suggesting that perhaps she had more to share. He asked if there was anything in particular she wanted to say, but she quickly changed the subject, saying her patient should be ready. Since he wasn't revealing much, she would have to base her outfit solely on his mother's preferences. As she turned to leave, he plucked a leaf from her clothing, advising her to check for stray debris on the day. On the day of Chairman Seo's mother's birthday, he sat with his parents amongst the other guests, the surrounding conversations buzzing with whispers about him. The murmurings and hushed discussions were so pervasive he could hear them clearly. His mother tried to comfort him, suggesting he ignore them. He turned to her, saying that it seemed to bother her more than it did him. She admitted that because he had arrived early, she'd held out hope, only to be disappointed that he was alone again this year. He chided her for possibly spreading the word that he would be bringing someone, but she denied telling anyone. With that, he decided to give her some space, thinking she might be embarrassed on his account. He walked away from the gathering. Mr. Kong approached Chairman Seo, mentioning that his mother had asked several times if her son truly hadn't brought anyone. Chairman Seo replied that his mother seemed reluctant to believe him. They noticed his mother talking to someone, and Mr. Kong informed him that it was the wife of the Tate gang group's owner, whose son had recently married. So the woman accompanying her must be her daughter-in-law. As he waited with an air of composed expectation for Haejun to arrive, he asked Mr. Kong the time. It was 7:25. Mr. Kong offered to call the hospital, but Chairman Seo was confident Haejun would come. Moments later, he spotted her in the distance. Yihan descended the stairs to greet Haejun. Seeing them together, Yihan's mother immediately approached. He quickly introduced them, and Haejun thanked her for the invitation. However, his mother had a hard time believing she was actually his girlfriend. Meanwhile, Haejun thought she was playing the role quite well. She apologized for making him wait. Seeing them holding hands, his mother became quite emotional. As they sat down, he asked if this was why she had previously inquired about his and his mother's preferences. Haejun mentioned he'd told her his mother preferred a demure image, so she tried her best to match that. She also asked if he was satisfied with her attire, explaining that she put a lot of effort into it, as it was beneficial for both of them, helping to maintain his image. He brushed off her explanation lightly, asking if she was always this serious about everything. She confirmed that she was indeed always serious, because money didn't fall from the sky. She admitted to making mistakes with patience, but emphasized she never messed around when it came to other people's money. Once she started something, she took full responsibility. Yihan was curious about when she had prepared for this, and she mentioned that she had been managing affairs for 13 professors and 5 department heads for 5 years. She had attended countless events, from welcome parties to retirement ceremonies and birthdays, with the hospital providing everything needed for these occasions. She even declared herself the queen of events, and offered her services for anything in the future, from birthdays to funerals to sporting events. She playfully flashed her customer service smile, claiming she'd attend any event if it helped reduce her debt before the budget allocation committee meeting. She mentioned she could have done better today, but she'd been in surgery all day. Yihan was surprised, asking when she had eaten. She replied that she hadn't, which worried him further. He questioned why she was drinking if she hadn't eaten all day. She reassured him not to worry, as she didn't lose control when she drank, having a good tolerance. Haejun apologized for trying to return the 2 million won earlier that day, explaining that she didn't usually shout like that. She admitted she hadn't meant to throw the envelope at him and should have placed it gently on the table. She apologized again, saying that sometimes things didn't go as planned. Yihan agreed, stating that life sometimes took unexpected turns. He said he needed to step away for a moment, trusting she would understand. Haejun worried that his mother might come and ask her questions if he left, but Yihan was confident that she was always prepared for anything. As she drank alone, Yihan's mother approached her, reintroducing herself. Haejun turned to reciprocate the introduction. Yihan's mother warmly thanked Haejun again for coming, and Haejun wished her a happy birthday. His mother expressed her initial disbelief that her son had actually brought a girlfriend and admitted she still found it hard to believe. Haejun apologized for not bringing a gift, but his mother graciously said that was something she should have arranged. However, as Haejun continued speaking, the older woman suddenly interrupted her, because Haejun had addressed Yihan by his first name. His mother found it endearing that she called her son Yihan instead of Mr. CEO. She sniffled and apologized again, admitting she didn't understand why she was reacting this way, revealing that after giving birth to Yihan, she never thought she'd see a day like this. She went on to explain to Haejun that when she was pregnant, her son hadn't moved much in her womb, leading her to believe she was having a girl. But she acknowledged that this was just his personality. She also mentioned that her son rarely spoke to her. Although she hadn't expected much for her birthday, Yihan's mother confessed she'd never received a gift quite like this. She expressed regret for not having a proper chance to greet Haejun earlier due to the crowd. Reaching out, she took Haejun's hand, suggesting they find a quieter spot to talk. Yihan reappeared, questioning whether Haejun could just go off with his mother anywhere. He reminded his mother that she'd initially only wanted to meet Haejun briefly. However, since she was already there, he conceded to having her join them for dinner. Chairman Seo, Yihan's father, suggested that formalities could be relaxed and that Haejun should call Yihan by his given name, rather than Mr. Seo, in such an informal setting. Haejun expressed her gratitude, emphasizing that she'd never anticipated such a turn of events. Yihan, with a self-deprecating air, wondered aloud what kind of employer she thought he was, implying he wasn't as bad as she might imagine. He offered to escort her inside for a more comfortable dining experience, but she declined, explaining that she typically didn't sit for long meals. Spending all day standing in the operating room, prolonged sitting made her legs restless. She preferred to eat quickly and prepare for her next surgery. Yihan asked if that meant she only managed a few quick bites in the operating room. She replied that she always made time when the cafeteria served pork cutlets. He gently reminded her that this wasn't the operating room. There was no rush. Haejun thought to herself, perhaps things wouldn't be so bad if the chairman was providing her meals. However, she quickly recalled her conversations with Oreo and Juno, both of whom had expressed romantic interest, only to be rejected. She admitted she'd considered dating one of them once things calmed down, unaware that someone else already had his eye on her, the chairman, whom she mentally referred to as the wolf. Tayun informed Yihan that she had meticulously crafted a schedule for the two of them. He looked at her, puzzled, asking what specific arrangements she was referring to, curious about her intentions. She then revealed her plan to secure 10 million won that day, leaving a remaining balance of 66 million won. This meant they would need to meet at least 6 more times to fulfill their financial arrangement. Furthermore, she outlined that for the first 3 meetings, they should feign intense interest in each other's companies, but from the 4th meeting onward, they should allow tension to surface in their relationship, stemming from their clashing personalities. He commended her meticulousness, a trait he hadn't fully appreciated before, impressed by her strategic approach. Curious, he asked what his mother might have divulged to her. He expressed his certainty that his mother always operated with a hidden agenda, implying that she needn't hold back in her dealings with his mother. This prompted him to begin recounting his story about his mother, when Haejun suddenly exclaimed, asking if she had actually given birth to him. Startled by the outburst, he watched as she quickly apologized, explaining she hadn't meant to be disrespectful, just trying to preempt any gossip. Surprisingly, he replied that no apology was necessary, revealing that even he sometimes found it hard to believe she was his biological mother. They clinked glasses, savoring their drinks. Suddenly, Mr. Kong entered the scene, and the chairman immediately inquired whether his mother wanted to know more about Haejun or wished to arrange another meeting. Mr. Kong confirmed his mother's interest in both, even suggesting a possible invitation next week to the opening of the Seomoon Gallery's new annex. The chairman readily accepted. He further inquired whether his mother had made inquiries about Haejun's hospital schedule, pointing out his mother's tendency to exaggerate her ailments depending on the doctor's specialization. Chairman Seo suggested that having the doctor meet his mother in the capacity of a gallery owner, rather than a patient, might be more advantageous. Turning to Haejun, the chairman anticipated her agreement, and indeed, she readily accepted, feeling she had found a kindred spirit outside the operating room. Raising her glass, she extended a friendly gesture to the secretary, inquiring if she could address him as Mr. Kong. As the conversation flowed, Haejun engaged with the chairman's secretary, pondering the unusual smile that now graced her face. She apologized to Mr. Kong for missing their prior appointment due to a surgery overlapping with the scheduled fitting. Mr. Kong, understanding her demanding schedule as a doctor, requested that she inform him in advance of any such conflicts in the future so he could make the necessary adjustments. The chairman remained pensive, puzzled as to why his secretary seemed to know so much about his supposed girlfriend. He realized that only he had known about their arrangement, deeming it best to maintain a casual facade. As Haejun requested the secretary's phone number, the chairman felt it was time to intervene. He remarked on the bitterness of the champagne, requesting Mr. Kong fetch a fresh bottle from the cellar. Though Haejun found the champagne sweet, the chairman insisted it was due to her limited experience with the beverage. Without warning, he took her phone, entered his own number, and returned it, suggesting she call him for anything she needed. After the rendezvous, Haejun returned home, sitting alone, reflecting on her time with Chairman Seo Yihan. She couldn't help but feel they were just at the beginning of this journey. She also realized the need to devise strategies for navigating this demanding employer. Meanwhile, at Yihan's residence, he perused Haejun's resume, noting her status as a Hankook University honors graduate. He remarked that she should be intelligent, yet found her lacking in his estimation, implying perhaps Hankook University's standards had slipped. The following day, Haejun arrived at the hospital in high spirits, a colleague approaching her, inquiring if she had just arrived. She confirmed, then, brimming with curiosity, asked if something exciting had happened. He playfully told her to guess. The nature of the news. After several failed guesses, he alluded to her empty stomach, suggesting she grab some breakfast. Still curious, Haejun pressed him to reveal the good news, asking if it was more exciting than a successful surgery. He responded with a smile, implying it was close. Simultaneously, at the hospital reception desk, the phone rang. The receptionist informed that the cafeteria was serving a special pork cutlet today. She assured the caller she would be there shortly, emphasizing the urgency as Chairman Seo Yihan was about to leave. Yihan emerged from his office, preparing to depart, the receptionist kindly offering to arrange a car for his return after lunch. In response, he quipped that since he was working there now, he intended to visit an unexplored part of the hospital, a sly smile playing on his lips. In the bustling cafeteria, filled with a murmur of hushed voices and cheerful chatter, Haejun stood with two colleagues. The air was thick with tension, as it was clear her colleagues were engaged in a heated debate, seemingly about Haejun. However, amidst the commotion, the cafeteria buzzed with the excitement of Cutlet Day. Haejun seized the opportunity to ask Minguk if he'd had any recent cases of congenital heart defects. Minguk, his voice brimming with positive energy, confirmed a case involving a 60-day-old baby girl with an 8mm hole in her heart. He also mentioned that although Dr. Oh had left after the initial stages, leaving him to handle a significant portion of the surgery, the entire procedure had gone smoothly. A newfound confidence resonated in Minguk's tone, a shared pride felt between him and Haejun as they selected their food and headed for a table. They encountered Dr. Choi, and Haejun reassured her colleagues, emphasizing that they hadn't done anything wrong. They continued towards their seats, Haejun inquiring about the patient who had undergone surgery the previous day. As they enjoyed their meal, Juno joined them, playfully teasing Haejun about her enthusiastic consumption of the cutlet, comparing it to an operation. Haejun warned Juno to stop joking and invited him to join their table. Juno declined, the department head watching his colleagues devour their cutlets. Juno quipped that cardiothoracic surgery was truly daunting. Haejun and the others attempted to persuade him of the meal's quality, steering the conversation towards fine dining and the general topic of the hospital. Suddenly, someone indirectly referenced Haejun's earlier point about finding gourmet food in unexpected places. Juno apologized for bringing it up, but Haejun seized the opportunity to advocate for open-mindedness. She praised the meal's quality, suggesting that such exquisite food should be served outside of a hospital cafeteria. Juno jokingly insisted on ordering steak. Haejun countered, emphasizing the joy of enjoying fine dining in unexpected locations. Her words resonated through the cafeteria, momentarily silencing the background chatter. An anonymous voice chimed in, citing examples like buffets at internet cafes or five-course meals at humble restaurants. Haejun, puzzled by the sudden hush, looked up and discovered the reason: the hospital's chairman. His unexpected presence in the staff cafeteria coincidentally validated her earlier point. Haejun sat in his office, deep in thought, recalling the moment when he'd told Haejun to contact him. Just as he was about to leave his office to meet her, he'd overheard her enthusiastically discussing the cutlets. That's how he'd come to learn about this intriguing topic today. Curiosity seemed to have rippled through the entire cafeteria, leaving everyone bewildered by the chairman's appearance. But that wasn't all. The chairman took a seat at Dr. Choi's table, which happened to be near Haejun's. He calmly dismissed the receptionist, claiming he could manage his afternoon schedule himself. Dr. Choi, seated beside him, considered it a rare honor to have lunch with the chairman, perhaps even an opportunity. He silently hoped Haejun wouldn't interfere with his heart transplant center affairs, even though she seemed unusually quiet today. Dr. Choi couldn't help but feel that Haejun was a perpetual source of trouble, yet he continued to project an air of confidence, making him wonder why the chairman was paying her so much attention. Finally breaking the silence, Dr. Choi began by asking the chairman if he was enjoying the meal. In response, Chairman Seo praised the food, saying it was so delicious. It almost made him forget his duties. This put Dr. Choi at ease, and he continued his meal, hoping he hadn't caused any disturbance. Seizing the opportunity, Dr. Choi expressed his desire to speak with the chairman in his office. He admitted their initial meeting hadn't ended in the best way and felt they hadn't fully showcased the true nature of their department. He asserted that despite occasional chaos, Their department generally ran smoothly, with everyone adhering to the standards of the prison hospital. Yihan voiced his earlier concerns about Dr. Choi, noting that based on the department's statistics, he seemed to be lagging behind his peers. Furthermore, he expressed worry that the doctor might be harboring an undisclosed illness, despite appearing to be in good physical condition. Before Dr. Choi could respond, the chairman interrupted, expressing relief that he wasn't the particular individual he had in mind. Having voiced his thoughts, Chairman Yihan encouraged Dr. Choi to eat his meal while it was still warm, complimenting the food as exceeding his expectations. Dr. Choi revealed he had been contemplating scheduling a meeting with the chairman to discuss various ideas. Yihan immediately offered his availability, emphasizing that, whether it concerned future plans or the smallest of queries, Dr. Choi could contact him at any time. Regrettably, Dr. Choi admitted he didn't have a chairman's contact information. Yihan then remarked that only those with his number could call him, a pointed comment directed at Haejun. With that, Yihan departed. In the following scene, Yihan went to meet Haejun, traversing the garden area and the back entrance. He was beginning to think she liked this spot. As he strolled, lost in thought, she hurried over, catching him and urging him to come inside quickly before they were seen. He, however, seemed unconcerned with the potential repercussions, as it was his hospital, and there was nowhere he couldn't go. Haejun stated that while she was sure being seen wouldn't affect him, she, on the other hand, wished to remain employed at the hospital, reminding him to keep their relationship a secret from everyone there. This led her to question why he had come to the cafeteria in such a manner, to which he countered by asking if that was the sole reason for their meeting. However, she explained that she merely wanted to emphasize her commitment to her responsibilities and repaying her debt, imploring him not to make such sudden visits again. Furthermore, his previous observation of her diligent work that evening prompted him to inquire why, if she was always so hard-working, she hadn't spoken up sooner. He then asked about Dr. Choi, who seemed to object to her. She replied that Dr. Choi had always been that way, and she couldn't change his perspective. She added that nothing she said would alter his viewpoint, so it was best not to try. She revealed she believed Dr. Choi's behavior stemmed from the chairman's apparent disapproval of their department due to her involvement. Consequently, she questioned why the chairman, in such a mood, was wasting his time and energy. As he pondered whether his recent irritability was due to her not calling or her inability to speak up in front of Dr. Choi, he realized it must be because of her. However, he chose to mask his annoyance, claiming he was never angry and asking why she had wanted to call him. In response, she explained it concerned their upcoming plans. She expressed apprehension because their next meeting was at his mother's art gallery, and Mr. Kong had mentioned there would be fewer guests, meaning the chairman's mother might inquire further. She asked how she should respond if questioned about how they met. The chairman, instead of answering, frowned in thought, and she, knowing he would react this way, then offered two versions of their story, one simple and one more clandestine, asking for his preference. However, it became clear the chairman might not have a choice in the matter, so, out of curiosity, she opted for the straightforward version. He asked her about the secret version, as she began to explain that on his first day at the hospital, he saw her and couldn't take his eyes off her. She implied he was so captivated by her presence that it affected his work, and he would do anything to win her favor. He interrupted her in disbelief, questioning whether she truly believed he would act that way because of her. Back in the cafeteria, Haejun's colleagues began to wonder where she had gone, especially since she hadn't finished her cutlet. They noticed she'd been acting strangely lately, often lost in thought. They speculated that perhaps the recent incident with the escaped patient was still weighing on her mind, though they also mentioned that such things had never affected her so deeply before, given her typically resilient nature. Returning to Yihan and Haejun's conversation, he asked if she thought her actions had influenced his recent performance, but she explained it was just an example she'd thought of. He wondered if this was the reason she hadn't been communicating much lately. She explained she'd been contemplating how to align her actions with the chairman's expectations and prove her trustworthiness. She also stated her intention to demonstrate CS's value once her debt was paid. During their conversation, she pulled a copy of a contract from her pocket and handed it to him, but he said he'd look at it later. Yihan mentioned he had something to do in the afternoon and indicated he wanted to leave, but she persuaded him to stay a little longer. She reminded him of the remaining 66 million won balance after deducting the 10 million won for his mother's birthday, and that she needed his signature to proceed. Despite her plea, he left immediately. Back home, Yihan reviewed the contract, thinking that while it seemed decent at first glance, it would require significant revisions. He was glad he didn't have to review it on the spot and ridicule her, but he found the situation amusing. Suddenly, his phone rang. It was Mr. Kong, his secretary, informing him that he would be accompanying the chairman to an art gallery. Yihan initially thought it unnecessary, but Mr. Kong explained that he'd heard the chairman's aunt was flying in from the U.S. for the event. He asked if it was appropriate for both Yihan's mother and aunt to be present, and Yihan assured him it wouldn't be a problem. Apparently, Yihan's aunt had been married 3 times, had a string of romantic scandals, and was constantly urging him to get married. Mr. Kong suspected the aunt's primary motive for the trip was to meet Haejun, which could spell trouble for the doctor. Therefore, he offered to accompany them to the event. The chairman instructed him to ensure their attire was appropriate. Mr. Kong sensed a distinct coldness in the chairman's demeanor, a feeling he hadn't experienced since their first meeting. Yihan's aunt was never one to let things slide. She had a sharp intuition, which could be unsettling at times. She had earned the moniker of the matchmaker. There was a time when she constantly set him up on blind dates, firmly believing everyone had a soulmate. When they arrived at their destination, they saw Haejun was already there, a bright smile on her face. Yihan quickly recalled their previous conversation, where she mentioned her attentiveness, even asking his opinion on what to wear. They finally reached their destination, and Yihan turned to his secretary, asking if today's event would be like the last one. Mr. Kong explained that while many company employees attended his mother's birthday celebration, today's gathering was more of an intimate affair with close friends. He assured her there would be people from his mother's social circle present, along with their children, and wondered if Haejun would feel comfortable. She replied that she would be fine. Seeing him arrive, she mentioned she'd just gotten there and had already greeted a few people, though no one had delved into personal details yet. She expressed relief, admitting she'd been slightly worried about encountering a dramatic scene like those in television dramas. When he asked what kind of drama she meant, she explained that in those dramas, people at gatherings often pry into each other's backgrounds, questioning why certain individuals are even present. He asked, surprised, what kind of drama she'd been watching, and she clarified that she hadn't been watching them herself, but knew people who did. She then revealed that everyone had been very welcoming since her arrival. He extended his hand to her and mentioned people were being kind to her because of her connection to him. He then told her there was one person she needed to be particularly mindful of, his younger brother, Seo Yihan. Haejun admitted she couldn't quite recall his face, having only seen him once at the hospital. Yihan said that might be for the best. Slightly frustrated, she pressed him to explain what his brother was like, but he cut her off, saying she'd understand when she met him. He emphasized that approaching his brother would only lead to trouble, and she should avoid any interaction with him if she encountered him. He advised her not to answer any of his brother's questions, nor even smile at him. Haejun agreed to minimize any interaction with Yihan as much as possible. She expressed a wish that Yihan had been more upfront with her from the beginning, as her anxiety had been building, and she'd meticulously planned everything, imagining it would play out like a scene from a romantic drama. She hadn't expected things to go so smoothly. Yihan hoped it would stay that way, emphasizing the unpredictable nature of life, and assured her she would find out the truth soon enough. He also told her his mother would be arriving shortly, reminding her not to overdo anything. In response, she sought guidance, wondering how to gauge if she was overdoing it. He offered a simple solution: mimic her behavior from their last date, assuring her everything would be fine. As his mother entered with another woman, Haejun inquired about the woman's identity, noting a striking resemblance between them. He replied that the woman was precisely the type she'd anticipated, and though he admitted to not having seen the drama she mentioned, he was certain the woman fit her expectations. He leaned in and asked if she wanted a special surprise. Meanwhile, his aunt remarked to his mother that, believing Yihan might be hiding something she didn't understand her own son. His mother recalled that he had indeed introduced Haejun at her birthday party, momentarily allaying her suspicions. However, his aunt remained convinced that Yihan was closely monitoring the situation, ready to step in and prevent any falsehoods. His mother asked why she was speaking ill of her son, to which his aunt replied, recalling Yihan's past behavior, noting his curtness whenever she introduced someone to him. She assured his mother that, with her vast experience of walking down the aisle 3 times, she would discern the truth when she saw Yihan and Haejun together. His mother, wanting to avoid hasty judgments, implored his aunt to observe the couple carefully so she could gauge the seriousness of their relationship before making any future plans. As Yihan's mother and aunt approached them, his aunt noticed something different about him, remarking that this wasn't the Yihan she knew. Yihan greeted his aunt warmly, telling her it was good to see her, as radiant as ever. She looked at him intently. Despite his occasionally irritating behavior, she had to admit he was undeniably handsome. Haejun then introduced herself to his aunt. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Juno told Oreo that Haejun had left, explaining that she had plans for the day. Oreo tried to pry, asking who she was meeting, but Juno told him to mind his own business, as he had a triple bypass scheduled for that day. He mused that this wasn't something they should take lightly. Back at the gallery, Yihan's aunt introduced herself, and Haejun replied that she'd heard a lot about her. She told his aunt that she saw a striking resemblance between her and Yihan. Aunt Hyojin observed them, thinking her nephew had found himself a fine catch. She asked Haejun how they had met. Bracing herself for potential surprise, Haejun explained that the chairman had come to the hospital as a patient one day, and they had exchanged numbers. While discussing something or other, their relationship had progressed from there. His aunt asked why, of all the hospitals, he had chosen Seomoon Prison Hospital and inquired about Haejun's department. When she replied that she was a cardiothoracic surgeon, Aunt Hyojin thought she'd finally caught her in a lie, but Hyojin quickly added that he'd gone for his mother. According to him, he said his mother suffered from arrhythmia, a condition that ran in their family, so he'd been worried about her, constantly calling to check on her well-being. They learned that Hyojin had ascertained the facts based on his mother's frequent complaints of chest tightness, heart palpitations, and shortness of breath. Aunt Hyojin was astonished by what she'd just heard. She'd never imagined her nephew cared so much for his mother. She complimented Haejun, saying she was quite something, and hoped Yihan hadn't been boring her, as she knew he wasn't exactly emotionally expressive. Haejun tried to defend him, saying he might be a man of few words, but he promptly finished her sentence by putting his arm around his supposed girlfriend, reassuring her that he was sure they wouldn't mind a little public display of affection before his aunt could figure out how to end the sentence. Despite this, his aunt remained unconvinced. Haejun excused herself to the restroom, her thoughts preoccupied with the bonus Yihan had given her. She was thrilled, her cheeks flushed with happiness. She couldn't help but admire Aunt Hyojin's perceptiveness, almost like a female version of Seo Yihan. She silently congratulated herself for handling the unexpected interrogation so well. Thinking about Jihan's aunt, she vividly recalled the moment he confidently put his arm around her. She patted herself on the shoulder, reminding herself not to be swayed by such gestures. After all, the contract was far from finalized. As she emerged from the restroom, she encountered a woman who greeted her. Meanwhile, Aunt Hyojin questioned Yihan about his charade, but he insisted that he and Haejun were genuinely dating. She mentioned hearing about the wager between him and his mother, questioning whether it was worth all this trouble. He denied knowing what she was talking about. She reminded him that, despite how he might perceive it, everything they did was for his benefit. She emphasized her role as his mother's only sister and expressed concern over his aloofness toward her, hinting that he might need her help one day. She then asked why he wasn't doting on Haejun and treating her like a princess. He argued that she was a grown woman capable of taking care of herself. However, he wondered why she was taking so long. His aunt mentioned that the room was full of people who lived off his family's fortune, which might explain his nonchalant attitude. She also implied that some people he wasn't relying on family money, nor did he particularly enjoy hinting at potential problems concerning Haejun. Haejun, curious, asked why they would target her, questioning why he had so many enemies. After a brief moment of contemplation, Yihan hurried off to find her. At the hospital, Haejin's colleagues speculated about her whereabouts, pleased she was taking a break. As they gossiped, Dr. Kim Juno entered, inquiring if anything was amiss with Yihan. They downplayed the situation, claiming nothing was wrong. However, they noted her meticulous appearance, mistakenly assuming she might be attending a hospital function with Juno, which wasn't the case. Juno wondered where she could have gone to spark such rumors. The woman recognized Haejin, greeting her warmly. She mentioned hearing about Haejin's relationship with the CEO and introduced herself as Juju Hain from Juan Bank. Others began to approach Haejin, the atmosphere growing tense. They bombarded her with questions, attempting to unsettle her, but Haejin maintained a surprising composure. She explained that her parents ran a small shop on the outskirts of Seoul, a fact she hadn't intended to hide. They insinuated that in such places, people tended to stick to their own social circles. One girl even alluded to Yihan's calculating nature. The conversation triggered a memory for Haejin. Yihan, growing increasingly irritated, observed the girls' pretty faces uttering ugly words. Just then, Yuan appeared, initially assuming the art gallery was for selling art, but realizing it could also be a place for healing the soul. A girl told Yuan he misunderstood, explaining they had known each other since childhood, and she questioned if Yihan simply didn't know her. Yuan asked if she didn't know that speaking like that at the Seomoon Gallery implied being wealthier than others. As they conversed, Haejin recalled the characteristics Yihan had mentioned when advising her to avoid his brother. They shook hands and introduced themselves. Juju Hain implied Yihan was immature, but Haejin's response made it clear she didn't appreciate their behavior. She emphasized that mentioning her workplace wasn't about social standing, but confidence in her own abilities. Infuriated, Juju Hain raised her glass as if to strike Haejin, but the glass slipped from her hand. Unexpectedly, Yuan heroically lunged forward to shield Haejin from the shattering glass, his hand getting cut in the process. Whispers and murmurs instantly filled the room as people tried to understand what had happened. Dr. Yoon immediately instructed the girls to call an ambulance. Just then, Yihan rushed into the room, mistakenly believing his brother was deliberately causing a scene in front of the guests. Yuan became agitated, pleading with his brother, assuring him he hadn't meant to cause trouble. Meanwhile, Yihan calmly attended to Yuan, trying to stabilize his condition while they waited for help to arrive. Yihan gently laid Yuan down, instructing him to move his fingers. Yuan called to him, hesitated, and asked what he could do to help. He reached out and gently removed his tie, intending to use it as a makeshift tourniquet. In a calm voice, he instructed Yuan to keep his hand elevated. Soon, the sirens of an ambulance wailed as paramedics rushed in. Haejin began directing, instructing them on what to do. Amidst the chaos, Yihan's mother and his aunt, Hyojin, watched, shocked and concerned. Yihan's mother turned to Hyojin, asking for a handkerchief, as she had given hers to Haejin, but Hyojin remained silent, leaving Yihan's mother surprised. She questioned Hyojin, wanting to know if she was unsettled by the incident, a departure from her usual composure. Hyojin denied it, stating she wasn't easily ruffled. Then, she posed a hypothetical question regarding Yihan and Haejin being together. Yihan's mother was taken aback, asking if Haejin didn't trust these boys. She confidently expressed that regardless of others' opinions, she believed in Yihan and Haejin. Hyojin simply told the mother that it was fine to keep hoping, then walked away, leaving a cryptic remark hanging in the air. As Haejin walked towards the ambulance, she reassured Yuan, assuring him that she would be fine with her uninjured hand. Yuan gently grasped her sleeve, sincerely expressing his desire to get to know her better. He began to invite her to dinner after she got stitches, but Yihan abruptly cut him off, his voice sharp with agitation. He demanded to know if Yuan was actually going to finish that sentence, then firmly told him to let go of Haejin. Yuan, startled by Yihan's sudden appearance, hesitated as Yihan continued to glare at him. Finally, he released Haejin and announced he was leaving. Yihan retorted, suggesting he leave quickly. Haejin watched, bewildered by her brother-in-law's reaction. The paramedics then led Yuhan away, and Haejun prepared to leave as well. But she paused when Yuhan called out to her. Turning back, she comforted him, telling him not to worry. However, Yuhan replied that if he chose to worry, he would. Haejun, misinterpreting his concern, assumed Yihan was fretting over his brother's injury. But Yihan quickly clarified that his worry wasn't for Yuhan, leaving Haejun puzzled. If Yihan wasn't upset about his brother's accident, Haejun began to apologize for the earlier commotion, explaining that she hadn't meant to create a dramatic scene, but had been trying to ignore the other women. But Yihan interrupted her, assuring her she had nothing to apologize for. Yihan gently reminded Haejun that she wasn't just a guest at this gathering, but his partner. A wave of relief washed over her. He wasn't angry. He encouraged her to be more careful in the future, and she nodded, the invoice that still needed his signature flashing in her mind. She expressed her relief that his brother's injury wasn't serious, and sympathized that his mother must have been frightened. As Yihan's gaze drifted towards his mother, deep in conversation with his aunt, he shared a family philosophy with Haejun. If it wasn't happening right in front of them, it didn't exist. This gave her pause. Could this family truly have no hidden secrets? She excused herself to freshen up, but Yihan caught her hand, stopping her. After what had happened, how could he let her go off alone again? Haejun assured him she wouldn't cause any trouble. This only made it harder for him to let go, his fingers fiddling with her sleeve. Silence fell between them. She looked at him, her hand resting in the one he had just released. They both broke the silence at the same time. But Haejun urged Yihan to speak first. He apologized for the earlier incident. Recalling Hyojin's concern about how the disgruntled guests might treat Haejun, he admitted he had underestimated the situation and promised to be more vigilant next time if she would tell him what the woman had said to her. To his surprise, Haejun brushed it off, saying she was fine. He questioned her, perplexed. How could she be fine? She smiled, asking him if he truly believed she would be upset. She explained her indifference stemmed from not loving him, whispering in his ear that only women in love fretted over such trivial matters. Yihan's hand clenched into a fist. A wave of disappointment washed over him. No one had ever spoken to him like that before. Yihan replayed Haejun's words in his mind, each repetition fueling his annoyance. Haejun attempted to continue the conversation, but he cut her off, assuring her he understood. His gaze, now cold, met hers. He suggested they head back inside, but Haejun cut him off, inquiring about the bonus she was owed. The question stopped him in his tracks. He looked at her curiously, likening her to a persistent seal. She reminded him of his promise, of a hefty 10 million won bonus if she successfully managed his aunt Hyojin's event. He nonchalantly confirmed she would receive it. Gratitude welled up inside her. She trusted his word, but she couldn't shake the feeling that he seemed annoyed. She curiously asked if it was about the tie. Though he denied it, she insisted on paying for it. As she began to back away, she offered to cover the cost of the tie with her bonus, seeing it as a chance to strengthen their business relationship. She casually inquired about the tie's price. His reply, 10 million won, spun her around to face him in shock. Accusing him of joking, she was met with a serious response. He never joked about money. With that, he strode away, leaving her to realize her bonus would cover the cost of the exorbitantly priced tie. Exactly. Later that evening, Yihan stood beneath the cascading water of his apartment shower, lost in thought. Haejun's words echoed in his mind. Her declaration that she didn't love him. He couldn't help but wonder if she even liked him. The following day, Haejun was in a world of her own, oblivious to her surroundings. Dr. Kim Juno's voice barely registered until he raised his volume, inquiring about her unusual quietness and lack of appetite. She glanced at the food before her, but the thought of eating held no appeal. She was already suffocating under the weight of her debt. Juno slid into the seat beside his colleague, across from Haejun, joking that perhaps another patient had escaped her care. Haejun countered with an unexpected question. Are you a man? He playfully replied that she had finally acknowledged his masculinity. He attempted to lighten the mood with further banter, but Haejun interrupted, asking if it was possible for a tie to cost 10 million won. The question left Juno bewildered. She elaborated, her voice rising. As a man, you must have bought ties. How can a tie cost 10 million won? Startled by the sudden outburst, Juno asked why she was shouting. She demanded he answer the question. He admitted his ignorance, confessing he sometimes even wore elastic ties. He couldn't fathom how a tie could command such a price. not even one studded with jewels. The thought momentarily amused Haejun, but her spirits sank again when Juno added that such an absurd price tag might exist in the world of chaebol. The realization brought tears to her eyes. Panicked, Juno quickly ushered her away from the prying eyes in the cafeteria, leaving their colleagues to speculate about what had caused Haejun's emotional outburst. As they exited the cafeteria, they encountered Jong Song and his team of interns. Jong Song strolled towards Haejun, casually asking if she had just finished lunch. She confirmed with a nod, while Juno muttered beside her, feeling thoroughly ignored. Jong Song brushed off Juno's comment and inquired about Haejun's upcoming surgery schedule. The blatant disregard further irritated Juno. Haejun attempted to reply, but Jong Song cut her off, suggesting she delegate more tasks to the interns. He promptly turned to his team, introducing them to Haejun as old classmates. The interns greeted her enthusiastically, and she reciprocated, despite Juno's continued annoyance. Jong Song then invited Haejun to join him for lunch, but she politely declined, stating she was fine. He pressed her on her refusal, jokingly asking if she still thought he had feelings for her. He laughed, denying any lingering affection. As she began to reiterate her refusal, he interrupted, explaining that his interns were eager to hear stories from their medical school days. He added, "Aren't we friends?" Juno rolled his eyes internally. Chun-sung insisted that as friends, they should have a meal together and reminisce about their internship days. Haejun politely declined, citing a busy schedule. Undeterred, Chun-sung assured her that he wouldn't misinterpret the lunch. Haejun jokingly countered that she might misinterpret it, then excused herself from the conversation. Juno trailed after her, grumbling about Chun-sung's typical behavior, calling him a jerk. This earned him a glare from across the room. Juno pressed on, voicing his frustration. Despite Haejun's repeated rejections, Chun-sung's persistent pursuit was baffling. He suspected Chun-sung had only joined the prison hospital because of her. He recalled Haejun saying she wanted to remain friends with Chun-sung, yet now he was playing the friendship card at every opportunity. Juno also mentioned hearing that Chun-sung was quite wealthy. To this, Haejun quipped that his bank balance must be well over 78.1 million won. Juno, though sympathetic to her situation, couldn't help but ask if she was still dwelling on that. He then steered Haejun into an empty room, asking her to sit down. He suggested she could seek a donation from Hankook University Hospital. She responded jokingly that she might as well set up a donation box next to her sleeping bag when she became homeless. Juno offered her a lollipop, her favorite flavor, trying to coax out what was truly bothering her. He was certain it wasn't just about the money. Haejun, however, remained silent, Yihan's pained expression from the previous night flashing through her mind. She wondered if she had hurt him. Juno urged her to open up, hoping to help, but she deftly changed the subject, rising to her feet with the excuse that she had patients waiting. Juno quipped that she looked like the only one in the department who actually worked, but she retorted that she simply had outpatient appointments. Stretching, she declared her need to earn more money to pay off her debts. As she turned to leave, Juno remembered something he wanted to tell her. Haejun jokingly said unless it was about money, she didn't want to hear it. He confirmed that it was indeed about money, telling her about the plans for the new VIP ward. Meanwhile, Yihan stood at his office window, contemplating Haejun's words. He understood her desire to keep work and personal matters separate, yet he couldn't untangle his own feelings. The planning director presented him with the ward plans, suggesting that specialist doctors, rather than residents, should serve as primary physicians. Yihan responded with sarcasm, pointing out the absurdity of burdening already overworked staff with VIP patients. The man stammered, explaining that he intended to offer compensation for the extra work, but doubted many would be willing to take on the increased workload for a meager bonus. Yihan's thoughts immediately drifted to Haejun, but he kept them to himself. As the director turned to leave, he assured Yihan that he would finalize the details after consulting practices at other hospitals. Minutes later, he poked his head back in, informing Yihan that he had a visitor. Intrigued, Yihan looked up. Yuan entered, Earlier, as the planning director left Yihan's office, his mind had been racing. He had been trying to curry favor with Chairman Seo Yihan, but his attempts had so far been unsuccessful. His suggestion to build an indoor garden, based on Yihan's mother's love of flowers, hadn't even earned him a single visit from Yihan. Just as he was about to lose hope, he saw Yuan waiting outside, and inspiration struck. He was sure Yuan would be delighted to see his only brother. It seemed the perfect opportunity. However, reality proved quite different from his expectations. Instead of a warm smile, Yuan was met with Yihan's icy stare. Yihan curtly reminded him that he'd vowed to sever ties if Yuan ever dared to approach him or his office again. Watching his golden opportunity crumble, the director felt a pang of disappointment. Yuan maintained his professional composure. When Yihan was firmly asked to leave the office, he raised his injured hand in protest, claiming he was a patient in need of treatment. Haejun, however, remained insistent that her brother leave. Yihan, though, wasn't backing down. He recounted the near-death experience the night he was injured and how he'd only just regained the use of his hand. He questioned how Haejun could be so heartless towards her only brother. Haejun, with a sarcastic lilt, asked if Yihan even understood the meaning of the word heartless, causing her brother to pout. Changing the subject, Haejun pressed Yihan for the real reason behind his visit. She preemptively warned him that if it was about money, he could forget it. Yihan, however, clarified his intentions, stating he was there to offer Haejun an opportunity. He then revealed his grand proposition. Being a minor, he needed a guardian to accompany him to his medical appointments, and he wanted Haejun to fill that role. As Haejun began to respond, Yihan interrupted, requesting to be taken to cardiothoracic surgery, which piqued Haejun's interest. With newfound confidence, Yihan emphasized the unique nature of his offer, an honor only a sibling could bestow. A few hours later, Haejun found herself sitting across from Yihan, trying to explain that he was in the wrong department. He told her he'd read that the major arteries around the wrist were all connected to the heart. When she remained silent, he added that he'd been experiencing a strange tingling sensation from his fingertips all the way to his heart, and wanted to make sure nothing was seriously wrong. Haejun found his reasoning somewhat sound, yet also a bit far-fetched. She glanced at Yihan, who was quietly observing the conversation, hoping that Haejun, as Yihan's guardian, would say something. When Haejun continued to remain silent, she assured them both that Yihan's hand injury had nothing to do with his heart. Yihan questioned her certainty, implying that if she examined him closely, she was bound to find something amiss. Haejun playfully chided him for being his usual melodramatic self. He simply repeated her words back to her with a questioning look. She turned to Yihan, assuring him he was fine. Yihan began to describe his symptoms: anxiety, sweating, shortness of breath, and a feeling that his heart might stop at any moment. This caught Haejun's attention, and she asked when these symptoms occurred. He admitted it was usually when his brother was chasing after him. Dodging Haejun's icy glare as he spoke, Haejun decided to check his heartbeat with her stethoscope, asking him to lift his shirt. Yihan obliged, blushing slightly, while Haejun gritted his teeth, clearly annoyed by the situation, questioning why he was even there. Haejun listened to Yihan's heartbeat, finding nothing unusual, while Yihan stole a glance at Haejun, secretly gloating over whether his brother was suffering from jealousy. Haejun told Yihan his heart rate was slightly elevated, causing the irritated Haejun to think dramatically that Yihan deserved whatever was coming to him. Sensing the tension, Haejun asked if there was a problem between them. They both denied it simultaneously, which only heightened her suspicion, but she decided to let it go instead, thanking Yihan for his help the other night, causing Yihan to flinch, but Yihan corrected her, saying she was the one who saved him. When she apologized for the incident, he waved it off, blaming the woman at the bank. He then invited her to dinner as a thank you, but she said she was too busy and would take a rain check. Yihan insisted on treating her to dinner, mentioning a great restaurant nearby. When she asked what kind of restaurant, he simply smiled and said it was a tteokbokki place. As Yihan continued to press Haejun for dinner, Haejun suddenly called out his brother's name, glaring at him sternly. He thanked Haejun for her time, making the atmosphere awkward. Haejun stod hesitant. Yihan watched them as he scrolled through his phone. Given their inability to hold eye contact, he speculated on the state of their relationship. Breaking the silence, Haejun brought up the topic of the VIP ward, but Yihan suggested they discuss it later. With the deadline looming, she insisted on addressing it immediately. However, Yihan excused himself with claims of being busy and hungry, at which point Yuan quipped, that his brother's aloof nature was the reason he was still single. Seeing no way out, Yihan invited Haejun to join him for dinner to discuss the matter. She reminded him of his previous excuse of being too busy. To this, he calmly replied that everyone has to eat. Throughout the exchange, Yuhan fidgeted in his chair, observing the two closely. When Yihan declared they were having pork cutlets for dinner, Yuhan was shocked, believing his brother had completely lost his mind. After some persuasion, a blushing Haejun finally agreed to join them, leaving the room to retrieve her coat. At the restaurant, Haejun thoughtfully cut Yuhan's food into smaller pieces, mindful of his injured hand. During the meal, Yuhan curiously asked his brother how he had discovered the place. Yihan explained that Haejun enjoyed pork cutlets and asked her if she liked the meal. She compared it favorably to the hospital cafeteria food, much to Yihan's surprise. He hadn't realized the hospital food could be so palatable. Later, Yuhan wanted to gift Haejun a present as thanks for saving his life, but she declined, requesting only the return of his tie, which she had used as a makeshift bandage. Yihan shot her a surprised look, while Yuhan admitted he had thrown the tie away, causing Haejun's imagined bonus to fly out the window. As they continued their meal, Yihan unexpectedly shared some of his food with his younger brother, causing Yuhan to exclaim with delighted surprise internally. The conversation then shifted to Haejun's career choice. She confessed to choosing cardiothoracic surgery because of a promise, regardless of whether the other person remembered it. She looked at Yihan, certain that promises were meant to be kept, even if they seemed foolish to others. Yihan assured her it wasn't strange and that he believed her, causing her to blush. After the delicious dinner, Yihan reached for the bill, exuding his typical corporate charm. Just as Haejun began to ask a question, he playfully shushed her, nodding towards Yuhan and jokingly remarking on his eavesdropping skills. Sure enough, Yuhan immediately chimed in, teasingly asking if their awkward standoff was because they were on a date. Haejun easily refuted his assumption, stating there was no awkwardness between them. As they prepared to leave, Yuhan announced his intention to visit a nearby store, imploring them to wait for him. Yihan Yuking knew that if he took too long, they wouldn't hesitate to leave him behind. Once Yuhan was out of earshot, Yihan turned to Haejun, giving her the opportunity to badmouth Yuhan. However, Haejun seemed confused, asking why she would speak ill of him. Yihan fruged, admitting it was something he often did. After a moment of awkward silence, Haejun broke the stalemate. She mustered the courage to ask Yihan if there was any compensation for looking after Yuhan. Anticipating her question, Yihan cut her off, confirming there was none. This didn't surprise her, but she admitted she had agreed because Yuhan was, after all, just a kid. As they walked in silence, Yihan sensed Haejun had more to say. He prompted her, and after a moment of hesitation, she finally voiced her thoughts. She said the rumors about the strained relationship between Yihan and Yuhan might just be rumors, given that Yihan had shared his food with Yuhan earlier. She added that the two brothers seemed quite alike. To Yihan's annoyance, he immediately countered her observation, insisting on their differences. Haejun, however, maintained they were similar, attributing any discrepancies to their significant age gap. Reluctantly, Haejun conceded that he was indeed 16 years her senior. She then shared her initial expectations of their relationship, envisioning a dramatic, almost soap opera-like rivalry for power, rife with the typical conflicts of wealthy families. Yihan, with his usual entrepreneurial composure, fixed his gaze on Haejun for a moment before calling out to Yuhan across the street. The sudden shout startled Haejun, causing her to instinctively grab Yuhan's arm. Yuhan, with casual curiosity, inquired what Yuhan would do if someone suggested Haejun take over Seomoon Group. The ever-jesting Yuhan loudly declared he'd transform it into a full-fledged entertainment company. Yihan turned back to Haejun, giving her a knowing look as he relayed his younger brother's whimsical vision. As Haejun attempted to loosen her grip on his arm, Yihan playfully tightened it, reminding her of Yuhan's sharp observation skills. Yuhan promptly returned, announcing his intention to buy a pie-caken as the previous shop had sold out. Once Yuhan was out of earshot, Yihan assured Haejun that his family harbored no dark secrets, hoping to address her unspoken concerns. Haejun withdrew her hand from his arm, admitting she might have misinterpreted their dynamic due to Yihan's seemingly cold demeanor towards Yuan. She remarked on their striking resemblance despite their contrasting personalities, describing Yuan as more cheerful and outgoing. Yihan grumbled about Yuhan's carefree attitude, confessing his annoyance at seeing a reflection of that lack of seriousness in his own face. Haejun couldn't help but laugh, trying to stifle it with her hand. However, Yihan caught her amusement and, on a whim, asked why she disliked him. Haejun feigned ignorance, prompting Yihan to remind her of their unfinished conversation. He brought up his earlier question about whether she had something specific to tell him, reiterating his inquiry. Caught off guard, Haejun finally confessed she'd intended to warn him against falling for her, as it happened often. Just then, Yuan reappeared with his coveted paikaken, providing Haejun with a perfect distraction. She enthusiastically engaged Yuan in a discussion about the cake, while Yihan watched her, wishing she had been more forthright from the beginning. The next day, Yihan was found in the study of the family mansion, engrossed in a pile of books. His father entered, a hint of surprise in his voice, noting Yihan's rare interest in the study, considering he seldom visited. He reminded Yihan that he had taken all the books the previous year. Yihan casually replied that he was merely checking for any remaining belongings of their grandfather. His father pointed out that their grandfather had passed away long ago, and they had already sorted through everything. He added that Yuan might have taken some items, and the rest were likely in the company archives. He inquired curiously about what Yihan was searching for. Yihan shrugged, preparing to leave the study, but paused when his father mentioned a call from the president of Juhan Bank regarding a minor incident at the gallery opening. Yihan bristled at the downplaying of the event, recalling how it not only resulted in Yuhan's injury, but also exposed him to the bank president's daughter's venomous remarks. He remembered Haejun's nonchalant "I'm fine," marveling at her resilience. His father advised him to separate personal matters from business, a sentiment Yihan echoed. He then requested his father find reliable staff for the VIP ward. His father mentioned an upcoming surgery for an Arab royal, emphasizing the severe repercussions of any potential errors. Yihan responded with a confident smile. It hinted at someone he knew always giving their all. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Haejun, lost in thought, moved through her colleagues, oblivious to their presence. Her mind replayed Yihan's reactions. She was so deep in contemplation as she shared her commitment to her career choice that she didn't notice Junwoo's frantic waving until he was right beside her. Taking in Junwoo's disheveled appearance, she playfully demanded he keep his distance, lest he hurt her eyes. Used to her teasing, Junwoo pulled an envelope stuffed with cash from his pocket and handed it to her. With a sheepish grin, he admitted it was all he had, thanks to recent setbacks in the stock market. Touched by his generosity, Haejun jokingly threatened to kiss him, declaring him the best. She happily counted the money, a total of 470,061 won, and after sincerely thanking him, took her leave. He trailed behind her, muttering to himself that if it hadn't been for the market crash the previous day, he could have given her another 200,000. Overhearing that the plummeting stock was Juhan Bank, Haejun revealed that she had already withdrawn all her savings from there, but he retorted sardonically that her withdrawal hadn't made much of a dent. He then shared a rumor about the bank's foreign investors suddenly pulling out, though Haejun outwardly expressed sympathy for Junwoo. A flicker of satisfaction ran through her, thinking of the bank president's daughter. Spotting some fellow resident doctors, she told Junwoo she needed to greet a VIP patient, surprising him as he hadn't known she was volunteering. As she said goodbye, he reminded her about the remaining 7.8 million won from their deal. Haejun glared at him, but quickly replaced it with a smile, telling him to do whatever he pleased. Even as he stammered out an apology, she left to join her colleagues. Junwoo remained, worried about her situation. Her fellow residents, relieved to have her at the VIP ward, admitted they had been nervous at first. Haejun responded by reminding them who they were, and in unison, they proudly declared themselves the invincible CS department, cheering loudly, oblivious to the figure approaching them. Earlier, Yihan had been basking in the tranquility of the indoor garden when his assistant informed him that the VIP had arrived. Yihan casually inquired about Juhan Bank, and his assistant shared the latest gossip, saying the bank president seemed to be in despair. With a smirk, Yihan commented that theatrics seemed to run in the family, recalling the bank president's daughter's tears that night. The assistant added that the bank president was vehemently denying any connection with the Shinmun group and hinted at a possible visit to the hospital soon. A mischievous glint entered Yihan's eyes as he instructed his assistant to relay a message to the bank president. If he dared to meet with Yihan, he would withdraw every last penny from the bank. As they walked towards the elevator, preparing to head to the lobby, the assistant couldn't resist mentioning Dr. Yoon. With a knowing smile, he hinted that she would be pleased to know what Yihan had recently done for her. However, Yihan demurred, stating he had no intention of revealing anything, leaving his assistant perplexed. After all, according to the assistant's wisdom gleaned from television dramas, women usually appreciated a man standing up for them and showing concern. Yihan simply shrugged, dismissing the assistant's advice, choosing to remain silent about his actions. Yihan's thoughts then drifted back to a recent encounter at his parents' house. He had run into Juhan, his mother, and his Aunt Hyojin in the living room. His aunt tried to persuade him to stay, but Yihan explained he was only there to seek his father's help, a matter that had already been resolved. His mother playfully asked if he needed any assistance from her, perhaps a shiny trinket. When Haejin showed them the ring, to everyone's surprise, Yihan agreed, much to his mother, Juhan's delight and Yuhan's annoyance. Yihan then snatched the toy seal from Yuhan, stating he didn't want him carrying such things around. As he was leaving, Aunt Hyojin called out to him, offering him one last chance to ask for a favor before she embarked on her month-long yacht trip around the Yellow Sea. Yihan asked curiously if she had bought a yacht, which she confirmed. Aunt Hyojin, immensely wealthy, flitted between New York and Seoul, possessing one of Korea's largest personal cash reserves and, remarkably, no business affiliations. It was then that Yihan inquired about her banking choices in Korea. In the elevator, Yihan's mind raced. His father's stern warning about not mixing his personal life with business echoed in his thoughts, and he couldn't help but think of Haejin and her blunt admission of not loving him. He found himself racking his brain, trying to decipher why she didn't like him and how he could change her feelings. As they stepped out of the elevator, Yihan, lost in thought, walked in the wrong direction. His ever-alert assistant gently steered him towards the lobby, but Yihan didn't want to go. He waved off the lobby, just as he heard Haejin's voice praising Junwoo as the best. Looking down, Yihan saw Haejin with Junwoo, a sight that irked him. His assistant suggested that perhaps Haejin and Junwoo were just friends, though he didn't sound entirely convinced. They watched as Haejin excused herself from Junwoo to talk to a colleague, and Yihan muttered to himself, for someone who always claimed to be busy, Haejin certainly had time for small talk. His assistant defended her, pointing out that surgeons like Haejin always seemed busy because there were always others trailing them, eager to learn. As Yihan observed the scene, he recalled Haejin's warning against falling for her. He let out a resolute sigh and decided to head back to his office. His assistant asked if he intended to greet Dr. Yoon, to which Yihan gave a firm no. But just as he turned to leave, a voice calling out Haejin stopped him in his tracks. Yihan's instincts were rarely wrong, both personally and professionally, and now they told him this newcomer, Chung Sung, wouldn't be content with just friendship with Haejin. Haejin watched as Chung Sung strode towards her, his in turn trailing behind. He joked about her frequent presence with Junwoo, enough to spark dating rumors, and teasingly asked if she was dating him, his tone casual and nonchalant. Haejin deftly sidestepped his question, citing her busy schedule. She started to walk away, the resident following, but paused when Chung Sung commented on her always being nice to Junwoo, ever since they were classmates and now as colleagues. He then suggested they let their respective teams go ahead and grab a coffee together. A flicker of annoyance crossed Haejin's face, but she masked it with a polite smile. She told him she had patients to attend to. Chung Sung brushed off her responsibilities, saying she should know how to delegate and not be bothered with such things as rounds. He even suggested that perhaps she couldn't delegate due to a lack of manpower, offering to lend her some of his doctors if that were the case. Haejin assured him she could manage, but Chung Sung continued to press. One of Haejin's residents, fed up with Chung Sung's posturing, moved to confront him, but was stopped by another resident. Meanwhile, Yihan's assistant, watching the scene unfold from above, nudged Yihan, suggesting he should intervene. Yihan, clearly irritated, grumbled about Chung Sung's typical behavior. Finally, the resident could take no more. Chung Sung approached him, informing him that Haejin needed to leave. The junior doctor's audacity to interrupt a senior-level conversation irritated Chung Sung, while Haejin simply glared at him with icy disapproval. Chung Sung accused Haejin of feigning busyness, then swept towards the elevator, his interns trailing behind. He insisted they board first. After all, they were the ones truly busy, the ones generating revenue for the hospital, and therefore entitled to such privileges. As the elevator doors began to close, he suggested Haejin wait for the next one, citing limited space, or perhaps take the stairs. But just as the doors were about to slide shut, Haejin thrust her foot into the gap, forcing the doors to jolt open again. She called out to Chung Sung, demanding to know where he thought he was going. Caught off guard, Chung Sung glanced at his interns, who were visibly uncomfortable, their sudden fascination with the elevator walls palpable. He turned back to Haejin, asking with a casual air of authority if she was addressing him. She confirmed that she was indeed upset, but dismissed his suggestion to take the conversation elsewhere. Instead, she ordered his interns out of the elevator, a move that clearly startled them. Chung Sung asked if she was angry because he had entered the elevator first. She replied that she was more than angry. She was furious. She brought up how he had gotten his current position because she had turned it down. Despite having the highest score, she reminded him that their department had practically begged her to join, adding that, even given 100 chances to rewrite history, she would still choose the path she had taken. This revelation clearly stung Chung Sung. Then, telling the interns they were going to be late, she stepped into the elevator. Chung Sung, Indigang, asked if her current attitude was because of his offhand comments. She retorted that if he were merely joking, she wouldn't mind, but if he dared to bully her doctors again, she would make him regret it. Then, she called him a jerk, further fueling his anger. As the elevator doors closed, she added with a mischievous wink that she liked to call all her friends that. Chung Sung kicked the now-closed elevator doors in frustration. Yihan's assistant, watching the scene unfold, gaped, saying he'd never seen Haejin so forceful. Yihan, observing from a distance, recalled how his assistant had asked why he didn't tell Haejin what he had done for her, and now he understood why. As he walked away, he thought to himself that anyone who bullied his girlfriend deserved retribution. Lotte Haejin was explaining a surgical procedure to her VIP patient, a foreign national who required a translator to understand the medical terminology. She assured him the surgery would only take 4 hours. The patient, speaking through the translator, inquired about shorter procedures, prompting her to explain the health benefits of this particular surgery. After a brief discussion with the translator, the patient wanted to know if Haejin would be performing the surgery herself. Haejin, curious, asked if this concern stemmed from her age or gender. The translator, unsure of the patient's reasoning, prepared to ask directly, but Haejin stopped him. She felt such a question might create unnecessary discomfort after the surgery. Then, to everyone's surprise, Haejin addressed the patient in fluent German, his native language, assuring him she would operate with the same care she would give her own heart. This personalized touch reassured the patient. As they left the room, her resident, impressed by her linguistic skills, asked how long she had been studying German. She casually mentioned she had picked up the language because she'd heard there was a bonus involved. Given her current workload, she figured it wouldn't be long before she paid off her debts and it would all be over. But the thought of it being over, this didn't bring the expected relief. Instead, it left Haejin feeling puzzled. A resident suggestion that impressing the VIP ward could earn their department the chairman's favor interrupted her thoughts. The team began speculating on what might please the chairman. One resident excitedly shared a rumor about the chairman's younger brother frequenting the hospital. They peppered Haejin with questions about the details of his checkups and whether he fit the stereotypical image of a wealthy heir. When a resident mentioned the 20-year age gap between the chairman and his brother, Haejin instinctively corrected them, saying it was 16 years, then added that she thought it was 16. The resident, unfazed by this detail, speculated that the chairman must resent his brother for disrupting his sole claim to the family fortune. Haejun countered that despite the significant age difference, she didn't believe there was much rivalry between them. Meanwhile, she wrestled with how to clarify her knowledge of the family dynamics. A resident, eager to spice up the conversation, mentioned a friend who worked at Simon Motors who'd heard a rumor that the chairman had once tried to throw his brother out of an office window and had even applied for a gun permit because of his brother's pranks. Haejun, having had enough of the gossip, stepped in, suggesting they avoid such talk in the hospital corridors. The residents quickly apologized for their indiscretion. However, one resident couldn't help but admire how Haejun defended the chairman. She immediately corrected him, stating that she wasn't defending the chairman, but rather suggesting they shouldn't indulge in biased gossip. Inwardly, however, she found herself wondering why she felt compelled to stick up for Yihan. Perhaps, she mused, it was because he worked as hard as they did, striving relentlessly against the odds, just like their colleague in CS. Her thoughts seemed to resonate with the residents, who began to consider that the chairman might be a dedicated and visionary individual, often misunderstood because of his youthful charisma. She added that he might just be an ordinary person, albeit one who made sure those around him were well-fed and occasionally flashed a warm smile. She mentally chided herself, unsure what had come over her. Shaking off these thoughts, she suggested they grab something to eat. As they discussed the cafeteria's obsession with pork cutlets, they saw Yihan and Yuan approaching. The residents greeted Yihan, who acknowledged them but continued walking past with Yuan. Though Haejun knew it would have been odd for him to stop and chat, she still felt a pang of disappointment. Meanwhile, the residents, on their way to the elevator, speculated whether Yihan had overheard their earlier conversation. Haejun received a text message. After glancing at her phone, she told the residents to go ahead without her. Yuan, having overheard Haejun and her residents' conversation, turned to Yihan with a grin. He wondered aloud where these wild rumors about Yihan were coming from. Then he playfully teased Yihan, asking if his silent tolerance of the gossip didn't bother him in the slightest. Yihan shrugged nonchalantly, stating that what truly mattered was that someone saw the real him. Settling down at his desk, Yihan chuckled at the thought of the chairman grilling every employee about office gossip. Yuan, ever the opportunist, seized the moment to tease, asking Yihan if he had just happened to run into Haejun and her residence. Despite Yihan glaring at him, Yuan continued his playful banter, even adding a wink for good measure. Yihan, ignoring his brother's teasing, began typing on his phone. Yuan settled into a nearby chair. Yuan pressed Yihan further, asking if something had happened with Haejun. He teased that Yihan looked like a nervous teenager about to confess his feelings. Clutching his phone, Yihan retorted that he was already dating Haejun and had just texted her, asking her to keep her evening free after 7. Yihan watched a falling leaf drift past, the sight reminding him of Haejun. His thoughts drifted to the anticipated date and the nervous wait for her reply. To distract himself, he inquired about Yuhan's love life. Yuan, brimming with confidence, boasted about dating 14 girls from his class in the past year. Suddenly, Yihan's assistant called to inform him that Haejun had arrived. He instructed his assistant to show her in. Haejun entered, greeting Yuan first before turning to Yihan and asking if her sudden visit had startled him. He reassured her and offered her a seat, but she declined, explaining she had something to discuss and wouldn't stay long. Yihan nodded, telling her he also had something to say. He mentioned seeing her earlier in the VIP ward, busy and seemingly engaged in a lively discussion with the resident doctors. At this, Haejun blushed. This made Yihan frown, puzzled as to why the mention of the residents would cause her to blush. Yuan, meanwhile, watched the exchange with amusement. Yuan grinned, and Yihan, seeing the mischievous glint in his younger brother's eyes, playfully ordered him to leave the office. Yuan, however, retorted that he wanted to stay with Haejun, the woman who had saved his life. Unaware of the brothers' banter, Haejun scolded Yihan for being so harsh to his only brother, forcing Yihan to reluctantly agree to let Yuan stay. He then turned to Haejun, asking what she wanted to discuss. Yuan was surprised by his brother's uncharacteristic patience, thinking that Yihan had truly changed. Haejun broke the silence, asking him if he had a gun license. When he denied it, she declared triumphantly that she knew it. Yihan, with a knowing smile, said that surely that couldn't be the main reason for her visit. Haejun suddenly became hesitant. She admitted she couldn't make their dinner date due to an urgent matter. Yihan masked his disappointment with irritation, telling her it was fine and dismissing her, though they both knew it wasn't. After Haejun left, Yuhan teased his brother, insinuating that she might be seeing someone else. Yihan glared at him, growling his name, and quickly changed the subject to their mother. Later, Haejun is seen meeting Yihan's mother, Chairman Cha, at a restaurant. Over tea, Chairman Cha apologized for the sudden invitation, and Haejun politely said she didn't mind. They made small talk, and Haejun wondered about the real purpose of the meeting. Chairman Cha mentioned sending Yuhan to distract Yihan, unsure if it had worked. Despite this, she added with a sweet smile that she was glad to spend time with Haejun. Haejun admired Chairman Cha's grace, kindness, and warm demeanor, but she couldn't shake the feeling that there must be a specific reason for this clandestine meeting. As the conversation progressed, Haejun addressed Chairman Cha directly, mentioning the remaining 5 dates she had with Yihan. She recalled her initial fear of meeting Yihan's parents, worried they wouldn't approve of the relationship. However, Yihan had told her that since he had paid a substantial sum, she had to endure. Now she couldn't return the money Yihan had already paid. Chairman Cha looked confused, and Haejun immediately apologized, saying she was just thinking about Yihan. Chairman Cha remarked that if Haejun could think of Yihan so readily, she must truly care for him. Haejun promised to treat Yihan well, adding silently to herself until the contract ends. Chairman Cha then slid an envelope across the table. She said that if Haejun truly cared for Yihan, she couldn't keep hiding it any longer. Haejun was stunned. Chairman Cha's words hung in the air, the unspoken question of money and separation from Yihan heavy between them. Haejun wrestled with the implications, her mind racing, when a sharp command jolted her back to the present. She looked up, startled, to find Yihan standing over her, his gaze intense. He repeated his order, his voice brooking no argument, leaving Haejun bewildered and a touch flustered. "What are you doing here?" she questioned, her surprise evident. Yihan's expression remained firm. "If you don't come with me now," he warned, "I'll carry you out." Not wanting to create a scene, Haejun quickly rose and followed him. Back at the table, Chairman Cha calmly sipped her tea. "I thought you'd have more backbone," she remarked, a hint of amusement in her voice, even against Yihan. A few tables away, Yuan, attempting to remain inconspicuous, pulled his baseball cap lower. Chairman Cha set down her cup. She gestured for Yuan to approach. "I gave you a considerable sum," she chided, "and you couldn't even keep him away." Yuan held his ground. "He's not exactly easy to manage," he retorted, clutching the envelope meant for Haejun. "Are you trying to pull off some K-drama mother bribing the girlfriend scene?" he teased. Chairman Cha dismissed the notion. "It's just Yihan's fortune reading," she explained. Outside the restaurant, Yihan continued to lead Haejun away. "Please, slow down, Chairman Seo," she pleaded breathlessly. "You know I prefer Yihan," he reminded her. "Are you still questioning us?" "Haedvin Blushet." "Let go of my hand," she requested. He released her, then asked, "Did you cancel our dinner because of my mother?" Haejun admitted the truth. "I couldn't refuse her," she said softly. "So," Yihan pressed, "were you planning to take the envelope and break things off with me?" The accusation stung. "I didn't take it," Haejun retorted. "I didn't even open it. I'm perfectly capable of making my own decisions without your constant surveillance." Meanwhile, back in the restaurant, "You gave her Yihan's fortune?" Yuan asked, incredulous. "You barely know her." Chairman Cha simply replied, "She's the woman Yihan loves." Outside, Haejun finished her impassioned monologue. It was time to go home, she decided. Then, a sudden realization struck her. Why had she been so flustered? She could have simply called to cancel dinner. Instead, she'd gone all the way to his office just to see his face. Why was she drawn to someone who jumped to conclusions and flared up before she could even explain herself? Back in the warmth of the restaurant, Yuhan posed a question to his mother. "Do you think there's something more between Yuhan and Haejun?" He wondered aloud, echoing his Aunt Hyojin's earlier suspicions. Outside, Yihan grasped Haejun's shoulder, turning her to face him. Inside, Chairman Cha countered Yuhan's doubts. If there was nothing between them, she stated firmly, she wouldn't have come to see me behind Yihan's back. Yihan held Haejun's gaze. He confessed his own struggles. "It's not easy for me either," he admitted. "Think about how it feels for me, falling for a hard-working cardiothoracic surgeon." His words stunned Haejun. He quickly reassured her. I'm serious, he insisted. She didn't need to doubt his sincerity. The next day at work, during a meeting about an upcoming surgery, Haejun was lost in thought. Dr. Choi's voice broke through a reverie. Dr. Seo, your opinion, he asked, noticing her unusual silence. Do you have a problem with me leading the surgery? She denied it. You need to learn patience as a doctor, he advised. After the meeting, a colleague expressed sympathy for Dr. Choi's harshness, but Haejun was too preoccupied to notice. Last night's conversation with Yihan replayed in her mind. His confession, his vulnerability, the unspoken question hanging in the air, waiting for her response. He gently adjusted her coat against the chill of the night, small gestures that sent her pulse racing. The sudden rush of emotion nearly made her dizzy, but a quick-thinking colleague steadied her, guiding her to a chair. Asking if she was all right, he surmised she was overworked from a week of back-to-back surgeries. Despite her insistence that she was fine, he offered to assist with her afternoon procedures, suggesting she rest until then. Despite his concern, Haejun decided to keep herself busy, thinking it the best way to quell the erratic heartbeat from the previous night. Last night, Yihan had pressed Haejun for a definitive answer, and in her flustered state, she had asked for a day to think. Now, she found herself wondering why she'd thought a single day would be enough to untangle the whirlwind of emotions within her. She told the concerned doctor to prepare for surgery, assuring him she was fine, but after he left, she admitted to herself that she did need time to reflect, a luxury she couldn't afford. She remembered promising Yihan an answer by 7 o'clock the following evening, a deadline he'd agreed to. Just then, she saw Kong Min, a resident doctor, hurrying towards her, calling her name. She asked if there was a problem, perhaps concerning anesthesiologist Kim Min. Kong Min, breathless, asked if she remembered the foreign patient. It took her a few seconds, then she did, asking if they had located him. Kong Min explained that, while they hadn't located him precisely, he suspected the patient might have sought help elsewhere. He'd posted on social media, alerting all medical associations. An email from a friend in Incheon suggested they might have admitted the patient. Haejun checked the email, asking which hospital in Incheon specifically. Kong Min admitted the location was slightly outside of Incheon proper, but assured her it wasn't too far. Meanwhile, Yihan's assistant handed him a box filled with records of previous CEOs. The assistant offered to sift through the material for him, but Yihan declined, saying it was hard to articulate what he was looking for. The assistant left, puzzled, leaving Yihan alone with his thoughts. Yihan stared at the box, recalling Haejun's flustered reaction to his confession, remembering the way she'd struggled to breathe, and the stunned look on her face when she saw the envelope. He reassured himself that he could offer her far more than what was inside that envelope, but was glad he hadn't voiced that thought to her. He instructed his assistant to leave the box, promising to look through it later. Left alone, Yihan silently resolved to confess to Haejun as many times as it took for her to believe him. The buzzing of his phone interrupted his thoughts. He picked it up, a smile playing on his lips as he acknowledged his own infatuation with Haejun. Yihan answered Haejun's call, mentally preparing himself to remain calm and composed. He'd overreacted yesterday, and he was determined not to repeat the same mistake. His assistant was about to give him some privacy, but paused when he heard Haejun's raised voice. Having worked at Seomoon Group for 4 years, he knew that tone usually signaled trouble. Haejun began by apologizing, saying she wouldn't be able to meet him as planned. Yihan took a deep breath, reminding himself to stay calm. He reminded her of her promise to give him an answer, and she quickly assured him she wasn't avoiding him, pleading with him to understand. Yihan sank into a nearby chair, rubbing his temples as she explained she was in the middle of a search, one that was taking longer than expected. When he asked who she was looking for, he couldn't help but feel surprised when she said the name. He gritted his teeth, demanding to know Haejun's location. His assistant watched from a distance, recalling similar past incidents where Yihan's fury had resulted in major shakeups within Simon Motors' upper management. He worried about what this might mean for Haejun. Meanwhile, Yihan tried to gauge how far away she was. Learning she was stranded on Beckwell Island, having missed the last ferry, he questioned her plans for returning. She assured him she would be back on the first ferry in the morning, promising to be at work and cause no disruption. His response revealed his concerns stemmed more from personal anxieties than professional ones. Feeling misunderstood, he curtly told her to rest and abruptly ended the call. His assistant sensed the tension. He offered to arrange a car for Yihan to take him anywhere. Yihan's reply, a question about his aunt's whereabouts, left the assistant bewildered. At the hospital, Haejin's fellow resident learned of her impromptu trip, chiding Kongmin for letting her go. Kongmin retorted that they were all on duty and couldn't accompany her. He also revealed Haejin's unwavering determination not to lose another patient. This news startled her colleagues, a ripple of unease spreading amongst them. Meanwhile, on a boat at sea, Chairman Cha and Hyojin received a call from Seo Yihan. When he asked for their location, Hyojin, surprised he'd unblocked her number, grew suspicious. She teased him, asking if he was about to ask for another favor, reminding him of his promises of gratitude. His sincere apology caught her off guard, and she agreed to turn the boat around. The next morning on Beckwell Island, Haejin sat outside the home of a kindly old woman who had offered her shelter for the night. She slipped on her shoes, breathing in the pre-dawn air. The old woman emerged. Surprised to see Haejin up so early, she reminded her the first ferry wouldn't arrive until sunrise. Haejin smiled, saying she just wanted some fresh air. The old woman, curious, asked who Haejin was waiting for, the question hanging heavy in the air like a thick fog. Haejin's spirits were low. She wasn't entirely sure who she was searching for anymore. The old woman, perceptive to Haejin's deepening sadness, thought she looked close to tears. She wondered if someone had wronged Haejin or stolen her money. Haejin managed a weak smile, and the old woman warned her. That kind of smile wouldn't get her far on this island. The old woman shared that she'd seen all sorts come and go over the years, many searching for someone or something, but she cautioned Haejin that a half-hearted search would yield nothing. She asked the old woman if she believed she could find who she was looking for. The old woman snorted, saying she could see it in Haejin's eyes, the willingness to travel the world to find that person. She'd seen that same fervent look in many visitors. Despite the old woman's skepticism, Haejin set off for a walk. The old woman called after her, warning her about the chill wind. As Haejin disappeared down the path, the old woman shook her head, certain that with Haejin's current attitude, she wouldn't get far. Moments later, the gate creaked open, admitting a new arrival, their determined gaze mirroring the very look the old woman had just described. In the car, Chairman Cha was lost in thought, while Hyojin teased her about her recent encounter with her son. Yihan rarely asked for anything, and Hyojin couldn't help but chuckle at the absurdity of it all. She reassured Chairman Cha that her heart was still beating. She didn't need to keep paying Yihan to be her hospital guardian. Meanwhile, on the beach, Haejin was lost in thought, replaying Yihan's last words before he'd abruptly ended their call. She wished she'd heard more, held on to his voice a little longer. The memory of Yihan's first confession of love brought a blush to her cheeks as she wrestled with the complexities of her own feelings for him. She wondered when his feelings had begun. Was it the moment he brought her food, or the day he sought her out at the restaurant? Perhaps it was the time she found herself mirroring his smile, an involuntary reflection of his own. She shook her head, bewildered. She was curious what Yihan's real girlfriend would be like. The memory of grasping his hand for the receipt sparked a flicker of jealousy at the thought of him with someone else. But she quickly reassured herself, as long as their feelings were mutual, that was all that mattered. She gazed out at the yachts moored in the distance. She recalled how Yihan always seemed to command attention at the restaurant, a figure somehow out of place in her world. She resolved to tell him, upon her return, that their connection was nothing more than a loan agreement. Just then, footsteps sounded behind her. Turning, she found Yihan standing there. Haejin was startled by Yihan's sudden appearance on the island. He greeted her with a playful grin. He confessed he couldn't resist coming to see her. He remembered the old woman telling him to wait for her, but ever the stubborn one, he decided to search for her himself. He chuckled inwardly. He, who prided himself on rationality and maturity, was now wandering Beckwell Island in search of Haejin. As he walked, he couldn't help but wonder, had she taken her promise lightly, or did she truly believe in finding someone this way? He spotted her near the lighthouse, his heart quickening. He'd intended to confront her with questions, but seeing her standing there, the questions seemed to dissipate on the sea breeze. The truth struck him. He'd rushed to the island like a lovesick teenager, unable to shake her from his thoughts. A blushing Haejin reminded Yihan that she had promised to return the next day. He replied that patience had never been his strong suit, hence his sudden visit. She gestured towards a gleaming yacht in the distance. asking if it was his. Yihan evaded the question, instead shielding her from the wind with his scarf. Haejun tried to steer the conversation back to the yacht, but Yihan playfully tugged on the scarf, drawing her closer. He leaned in, murmuring that the yacht's color was the least of his concerns. He'd worry about such things when he regained his senses. She started to speak, but he gently hushed her, telling her to close her eyes. When she did, he seized the opportunity, softly kissing her lips. As she responded, her arms encircling him, Yihan pulled back slightly. A mischievous glint in his eyes, he asked if she wanted him to stop. Flustered, Haejun shyly shook her head. A triumphant smile touched his lips as he pulled her closer, kissing her again. Back in Seoul, Hyojin recalled Yihan's unexpected arrival at the dock earlier. She had only agreed to turn the boat around because he had promised to apologize. This had surprised both her and Chairman Cha. Chairman Cha approached Haejun, admitting she hadn't slept well. Haejun teased her about her late-night catalog browsing habits. Chairman Cha insisted she was merely keeping up with the trends. Haejun was unconvinced, reminding her that while choosing Yihan's first birthday ring, she had also picked out wedding gifts. Chairman Cha blushed at the memory. Suddenly, Hyojin remembered something she had forgotten to tell Yihan and decided to text him, relieved that he had finally unblocked her. On the luxurious yacht, Yihan and Haejun nestled together on a plush sofa in a cozy corner. As Yihan showered her with kisses, Haejun gently pushed him away, protesting with his name. Lost in the moment, Yihan continued, trailing kisses down her neck. When she called his name again, he finally paused, asking what was wrong. But before she could speak, he pulled her into another passionate kiss. She gently pushed him away, sitting up. He looked at her, puzzled, and asked what was wrong. She insisted they needed to talk, but Yihan pulled her closer, promising they would. But for now, he wanted to continue this moment. As he leaned in, she stopped him, insistent on saying something. A flicker of frustration crossed Yihan's face, but he quickly apologized for his eagerness, admitting he found it hard to control his feelings for her. Yihan asked her curiously what she wanted to say, his gaze intense and warm, bringing a blush to Haejun's cheeks. Flustered, she forgot what she had meant to say, stammering that they could continue. The line had been crossed, after all, though this wasn't what she'd initially intended to express. Seizing the opportunity, Yihan resumed their intimate moment, but the insistent ringing of a phone interrupted them once more. Yihan wanted to ignore it, but Haejun insisted it could be important. He grumbled about the interruptions. He checked the phone, learning from a text from his aunt, Hyojin, that the yacht was equipped with cameras. The discovery infuriated him, so much so that he crushed the phone in his hand. After dressing, they stepped out onto the yacht's deck. Haejun, visibly exhilarated, took in the breathtaking view. Yihan reminded her of their unfinished conversation. She assured him she hadn't forgotten her promise, nor was she trying to avoid it. As she continued to speak, he gently interrupted her, calling her name. He took her hand, his fingers lacing through hers, drawing her closer. Then he asked her if she could go back in time. Before she saved that patient, would she make a different choice? She told him he didn't need to hold her hand, but he countered that her hands were cold and a surgeon needed to protect their hands. He encouraged her to answer the question, and she stated firmly that she wouldn't change a thing, because she was a doctor. Yihan pulled her into a warm embrace, confessing that her conviction was why he trusted her and believed in her honesty. Tears welled in her eyes at his heartfelt confession. She hugged him back, their heartbeats echoing each other. This seemed like a perfect ending, but the comic is still ongoing, so we look forward to new chapters. Until then, check out other exciting recaps on our page. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you later.